her time. She's 4 now, she's fully potty trained, but I didn't put any pressure on her. And more importantly, I didn't put any pressure on myself. And I just, took the practical steps for potty training, rewards. She's verbal, so, rewarding her, giving her incentive. The regular potty training steps that you would take for a child, but giving her more support and giving her more time to get it. And I love that we had a panel session before with therapists and so on, because our therapist played a really big part in actually teaching us how to potty train her and the steps to take. So that was basically it. I think we just gave her time and she eventually got it. Yeah.
I think that's so important about giving people time, and not just your child, but yourself. So everybody has their own time. It doesn't have to be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, as much time as it'll take. And I love the fact that you worked with a professional, so you didn't just try to figure everything out on your own and then give up because you're just exhausted and overwhelmed. So I'm going to move to eating because, we have you here, and what I love is when you can see the practical results of what they are preaching. They say talk now do, right? So you're not just telling us what to eat and how to eat foods that will heal us, but you're also, the skin is skinning. I'm here so I can see it. But yes, when it comes to eating, because this is about practical tips, sometimes parents are just overwhelmed. They don't know, about allergies. They don't know how to get the right kind of foods. Or sometimes they go online and they see things like kale and salmon, and these are not native to us, at least not very popular here. So how can they navigate that within the Nigerian experience and Nigerian cuisine?
Thank you very much. So I think the very most important thing, the ground zero of, I would say, any conversation about helping to recover or at least improve a child is nutrition. We're doing all these therapies, we're doing all this academic learning, but the truth is, if the child isn't getting the right nourishment to start with, a lot of that is going to be futile. You're going to have frustrated parents, you're going to have frustrated teachers, and you're going to have a frustrated child, because autism for years, ASD, ADHD, so many of these, neurological development disorders have been categorized as mental or psychological, but they are whole body disorders. They are physiological. So the body needs attention. And when the body is attended to, then you begin to see improvements in the brain. So one of the things that I think parents need to understand as a starting point is the connection between the gut and the brain. Hippocrates said, you're a doctor, he said, all disease begins in the gut. So it follows that all health begins in the gut. It's how you manage what is going into your stomach. Like, if you understand that 80% of the communication between the brain and the stomach are directionally from the stomach to the brain, then it tells you what is in charge. The stomach is doing most of the communication to the brain. So it tells you that what goes into the stomach is essential to what happens in the brain and what happens all over the body. So over the years, like most people here who have been speakers, like most people in here, I also am a custodian of a child that had a diagnosis or has a diagnosis. I say my son is overcoming autism. He's 13 years old, he'll be 14 this year. He's in a mainstream school, he's in year 8, and he's doing well. And I believe one of the reasons why he's doing well, or better than he would have been doing, is because of his diet. It's because ever since he was about 6.5 years old, we decided to just recalibrate and focus on what goes in his stomach. And so I know that it might seem complicated sometimes, but it's actually pretty easy. There are different diets. There are so many different diets that can get confusing. But when you narrow it down, like I'm the proponent of something called the GAPS diet. So I'm honestly not here to sell a book, but I do have a book that covers essentially everything that, has to do with the GAPS diet. Like, it breaks it down. And the GAPS diet is a diet that addresses, the influence that sugar, that gluten, that starchy foods, and all sorts of things like that have on the stomach, which affects the presentation of the child. So when you're talking about nutrition, it's about just taking your time, first of all. Do your research. understand how to find alternatives. Like sometimes we read these books, they seem complicated. But for me, what I was able to do was distill and find alternatives to most of the foods that were recommended. And in Nigeria, there are plenty alternatives. So it's about creating a menu, a meal plan for your child that will work for them. And the truth of the matter is you have to be patient. You have to take it in a capsule of time. You can't look at him tomorrow or in a week
And
or
expect
say,
like
what's going on? It's not
microwave
changing.
results.
Exactly.
We'll come back to the diets. I
Alright,
know people will want to know like specific things and learn more about the GAPS diet. But I'll move to our next panelist. And you know, you deal with a lot of mothers, a lot of fathers, a lot of parents or guardians, and you know, they bring their children in to go and see the pediatrician. Um, what are practical tips that you give to parents when they bring their children with special needs, so across, you know, from ADHD to autism to cerebral palsy, and just to encourage them, because we have some of those parents here or some of them, you know, tuned in online, and for a lot of them they just don't know where to start from.
So thank you very much, Isabella. Hi, moms. And the two dads in the crowd. Yes. So we are grossly outnumbered. So it's great to be here. So practical tips. I would say the first practical tip I would like to offer is that no two children are the same. Make sure that you're not trying to force one child into the system that you have created to work for another. Even because you will just end up frustrating that one child. So I think my first practical tip is do not try to assume that all children are the same. Secondly, one should bear in mind the idea that the goal of helping, offering tips, of raising a child is for the child to become independent as much as possible. The idea is that you want to make sure that they are acquiring those little skills as much as they can, so that by the time they are 5, they're able to do the things that a 5-year-old can do, albeit a little bit slower than what you would expect a neurotypical child to do. So, how do you achieve independence for them? Number one, they will copy you and copy everything that you do. So sometimes let them watch you get dressed. Let them watch you put on a shoe. Let them watch you do those practical things that you think that it will be hard for you to teach them. But by the time they watch you, because children, you know, learn by imitation, and so just let them imitate you in everything that you know that you are doing, and then try to help them. Don't be scared of letting them try it out by themselves. I find out that in the West, they're a bit more eager to let their children try things out than here. Here is like, open your mouth, and they want to give them the food. You know, sometimes let them feed themselves. They will make a mess, but, well, it is what it is. When it comes to potty training, you know, very quickly, this is my last point. When it comes to potty training, I also think that you shouldn't pressure yourself, as Ayoinka has said. Don't pressure yourself, don't pressure the child, because if the child forms a disordered relationship with pooping, and I'd say that one of the first things that a child becomes ashamed of is the smell of their poop, which is why they'll go to the corner when nobody is watching, and they will do it, and then they'll come out satisfied. And you're wondering, where is this smell coming from in this house? So don't give them that impression that, oh, it's, the pooping is something to be ashamed of. So try to just, you know, create an environment where pooping is normal and physiological. Begin to take them to the toilet as soon as you possibly can, so that they are familiar with the toilet environment. I mean, also in the line of the discussion, we're still going to, of course, you know, talk about more things about nutrition and more practical steps. But I'd say that I think those are some of the 3 steps that I think you can just employ to make sure that the children have an idea that I can do this myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So one round of questioning from me, and then we'll open the floor for questions. I was debating, so I'll let you choose whether you want to speak on screen time or maybe sleep patterns, because those are very important with, you know, daily care and the daily routine.
Yes, because I think we've spoken a lot about screen time. So I would say, to be very honest, my daughter, um, she hasn't never really had issues with sleep. I know that this is something that parents that have children with ASD struggle with a lot. But luckily, she hasn't really had that issue. And as Tolu was speaking, I've always wondered, like, what can I use to describe her? And overcoming autism is like perfect, because she's almost overcome, you know, a lot of her symptoms. But for sleep, and I would say for any child, and especially children with ASD, a routine is so important. So we have a routine. In the evening, she has her dinner, she has her medicine, she goes to bed at a certain time. No, we read before bed, and then she goes to bed at a certain time every single day. So they need that stability and that routine. Another thing that really helps as well is magnesium. And we all know that magnesium is good to calm them as well. And there's some calming exercises that you can do as well. If you just Google calming exercises for children with ASD, sometimes they like pressure, so sometimes weighted blankets. But my daughter is very sensitive to blankets, so she doesn't like pressure, so she doesn't sleep with any pressure at all. So you need to create a very comfortable environment for them so that they can, be comfortable with it. They can be used to that environment. And then I would just say routine, routine, routine. So I think that has helped us. For the times that she does wake up at night and things like that, I just try to find out what the need is, fill that need, and then put her back to sleep as well. But I think just having a very strong routine and, letting the child know what to do at a certain time really helps. Yeah.
So by having that routine and knowing what works for your child, I love how you gave the example of the different interventions and using the one that actually works. So I'll pick up on the magnesium because this is your field when it comes to the diet. So if you can just share maybe some of the important vitamins, the important nutrients that are required, not just for neurodiverse children, but I'll say also neurotypical children, because if everyone can be healthy in the family, why not? If everybody can be healed from food, why not? It shouldn't just be the child with that's neurodiverse.
Absolutely. So I don't know if Ayimika said it enough, but routine, routine, routine. And I'm glad you echoed that. Our neurotypical children need routine. So how much more, our children who might need additional support. So it's very important that you set the right environment, first of all, for sleep. She mentioned magnesium. I'm very glad she said that. And so to piggyback on that, there's supplements that, the truth is our children are not going to get every nutrient they need from food. It's not going to happen. So that's why supplements are essential. So you do your research and you find out what probably your children's deficiencies might be, and you supplement. You find the most pure supplements that you can get. Magnesium is one that is fantastic for sleep, like she said, because it helps to calm. It helps to calm, even as an adult, like magnesium is very effective. You can actually mix it into, their lotions or shea butter or something and just use it as their night cream. And it actually helps them to sleep. You can, spray like pure magnesium under their feet and just massage their feet, and it helps them to sleep. You can put it in the bathtub and, just be a part of the night routine. So these are some of the things that can actually help. When we talk about supplementing, like I said, there are some things that maybe may not be accessible to everyone, but the truth is you just need to find what works for you. There's a world of research out there. I think what happens is a lot of parents get so overwhelmed. You just look at the problem and it just looks like it is insurmountable. But you just take it one day at a time. This is advice that I'll give anybody. Whatever it is you're facing, just address it little by little. Don't try to take it in one big bite or you're going to be overwhelmed, you're going to be discouraged. So just try to chip away at it a little bit at a time. Do your research and find out where your children's deficiencies are. Talk to doctors. We have fantastic doctors like this who will help you to diagnose your child, who will observe them, who will give you, diagnosis and also, routines to follow and medications or supplements or whatever. So there's too much that we have left undone before we say we don't have any more choices or we don't have any more options. And I'm glad that we have this conference because it's an opportunity for us to start trying to discover what we've not done. Try to learn what we haven't actually started, identifying or knowing. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Renner, when it comes to practical tips for everyday living, you already spoke about the relationship children have with poop, for example. What are things that we can do as parents to encourage children to come out of their shell, to feel loved and accepted? So it could be how to perhaps talk to other siblings or talk to caregivers. What practical tips do you have?
Okay, so thank you very much, Tolu, for the kind words. when it comes to social interaction, we do realize that children who are on the spectrum, one of the hallmarks of their condition is the idea that they have impaired both verbal and non-verbal communication, and they don't really understand non-verbal cues. So if you are dissatisfied with them, if you like, wink and do like this from now till kingdom come, they're going to ignore you depending on, where they are on the spectrum. So the first place in which a child is going to socialize, of course, is the family. And unfortunately, you find out that children who are on the spectrum, you'll find some who are a bit more sociable and they're willing to be hugged, they're willing to maintain eye contact, but there are some that they will simply resist any kind of affection and they will push you away no matter what. But you'd be surprised at some point in time during your interaction with them, they will be the ones to come to you because everybody does need that human connection at some point in time or the other. So social integration, of course, is another aspect of care of children that are neurodiverse that we need to address because we live in a social environment whereby they must interact with other people. They are going to grow up, they are going to be interacting in school environments, in work environments, and they need to do so in a functional way. And so practical tips that can aid and help them to make sure that they are trying to integrate without forcing them to interact with who they do not want to interact with because you will get a meltdown. You will get a meltdown. So make it gradual. I think that's the first point. Make it as gradual as possible. If they seem unwilling to actually go into that situation where they are made to interact with people, then don't force it on them. Let them just be with you. Two, is continually expose them to situations where they can interact. And nothing is more interactive than play. Whether it is, their play group, whether it is, swimming lessons. I know Bode Abifarin, she wrote a book on her, because I think she has two sons that are on the spectrum, and she was describing their football practices and how they enjoy going to football practice. So extracurricular, gives the opportunity for them to learn new skills and interact. And you see, that learning process actually helps to fine-tune neurons in the brain to make sure that they connect learning a new skill with being around other people. And so that actually helps them to integrate more socially. I'm sure we'll raise other points as the discussion goes on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to take just 3 questions. Please keep them very brief. Can I have 1, 2, wow. Okay. Okay, 3, 4. We'll address them very shortly. Like, we'll keep our answers very short. And if you still need a follow-up answer, I'm sure they will be around. So can we have the microphone go round? We have 4 questions and just about 9.5 minutes to answer them, and I'll conclude this panel.
Okay, I'm up again. My question this time around is this. Knowledge is key. And we've come across a lot of parents that their kids are having disability, but they will tell you that their father was like this. Even me, myself, I was like this. And the intervention that would have started earlier, probably when the child is around 9, 10, that is when it will start. Now, my question is this. Is it the intervention for 2 years that we're also going to meant for that of a child of 9, 10 years?
Okay. Did we understand the question? Okay, so can we have the next? I know we have 3 more. Okay, let's get the microphone.
All right, thank you. So my question basically, we're talking about tips, right, practical tips. My question now is, I work with an organization and specifically for Down syndrome. And most often we get students or persons with Down syndrome in their 20s, in their 30s, as even in their 40s. And you still see some of them still do not have this, they're not toilet trained. They still mess up themselves, cannot make use of the toilets, cannot clean themselves. What are the practical tips that can be used for adults like that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We still have 2 more questions. 1, and then the gentleman, you also have a question. Okay.
Thank you very much. My question is on feeding. So, formerly, when my son was about maybe 8 months, he would eat anything. But suddenly, he has grown this strong preference for only Friso cream. He doesn't want to eat anything. Now he's 2 plus, he's turning 3. He doesn't want to eat anything. He doesn't take juice, he doesn't take nothing, only Friso cream. I've tried several ways, but it's not working.
Okay. Thank you. And then we'll take the fourth question from the gentleman. So, would like if the interpreter can let us know the question. Sorry, has he asked the question? Yes. Okay, you're asking him.
Explain what the woman said,
Okay.
and he said only that maybe the woman should try. He's now giving me like solution to what to do.
Okay, so if he still asks a question, then you can let us know.
Okay,
So I think we'll start from my left and we'll go all the way down. Okay, there was a fourth one. Okay. My
Hi,
apologies.
good afternoon. Okay, so this is a question, a realistic question, mom to mom. So I'm a mom of 4 and I have 2 children on the spectrum. So I did the whole diet thing, right? I was constantly in the kitchen. I was doing the gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free, sugar-free. I was doing everything for my daughter. In fact, when I started doing it, that's when she started getting her speech. She's 11 now. I started when she was about 3. But it took a toll on me and it took a toll on my pocket, right? So I asked myself, can I keep doing this for the next 20 years of her life? And I said, no, I can't. And I also noticed that she started rejecting the gluten-free foods. She's older now, so she will practically go get a plate, sit down with you, and want to eat your spaghetti with you. This is a girl that I used to use 1 hour. She used to eat Cerelac, and we take 1 hour and we pray and beg her to swallow. So now she's breaking bones. She's eating everything. She's doing all these things. But I want to ask, is it okay to let her be? Meaning that she's eating everything now. She will stare you down. She doesn't want her gluten-free spaghetti. And me say, I don't have money to be buying gluten-free spaghetti. So she's staring you down. She wants to eat eba. She wants to eat the spaghetti. She wants to eat everything. But one part of me is like, should I stop her? Should I take her back to gluten-free? Or should I just let her be? And also notice that there are no, since she started eating better now, I don't see any effects. She's done the food allergy test. I've done series of tests sent to the US and all those things. And then my second question is, okay, so my first question is, should I let her be? Then the second question is, I was also buying supplements for her. I was importing copper, selenium, digestive enzymes, omega-3. I was buying all these things for her. But after some time, me too, I got tired. How much is dollar now? So I just said, let me let this girl be for 2 months. Let her system breathe. So I noticed that her sleeping pattern is the same. She's not regressing. She is fine. So I just let her be without the supplements. And that's my question.
Okay. Thank you all very much for the question. Can I? Thank you very much. So just in one minute each. So familial delay, this idea of, because the father does not work on time, then children should not work on time. It's a myth. It's misguided reassurance. And definitely the intervention that you give to a 9-year-old is different from the intervention that you give to a 2-year-old. So the earlier, the better. When it comes to Down syndrome, you see, Down syndrome is peculiar in the sense that they have what we call a learning disability, which we used to call mental retardation, but now we start calling this learning disability. So that's the challenge. And sometimes some people with difficult learning disabilities, they will need care for the rest of their lives. So the only practical tip is that get nursing care. Unfortunately, as hard and as expensive as it is, they will need nursing care for the rest of their lives. And that is just the unfortunate reality of our existence. But can the government subsidize some of this care? I think it's something that we should advocate for. I framed the question as a Friso cream baby. At least he's eating a Friso cream, Abi. Just keep on trying to offer the other things that you can and let him eat the Friso cream. One day you'll be surprised he will just eat, the other things. Gluten-free. Please allow her to enjoy herself. Allow her to eat her gluten-laden pasta. Let her join you in your pasta. Because the reality is that, she has gotten to that stage where it's unlikely that she's going to regress, in any way. As for the supplements have been useful, but what I'd say is that if you stay off the supplements and allow her to eat the gluten, maybe for some time, and you think that there's any kind of regression, she's becoming a teenager. She's going to have her independence. She's going to go to school, and she's not going to be under your care. So you have to have a discussion with her about what is good for her and how she can maintain her health even while she's not under your direct watch. Thank you.
Thank you. So to the lady that asked about, the 9-year-old I would say it's pretty much straightforward. Early intervention is the best. There's no harm in early intervention. So when you have a parent who is saying, we'll wait, tell them that there is more harm done when you wait than there is if you don't wait. So just start early, always start early. That's the best option. Okay, this is Thank you. So start early. So for the lady whose child is eating free so cream, I don't know if that's what it's called, sorry. My son, for years, for about, I'll say maybe 3 years, all he wanted was Cerelac. What we started doing was we started adding fruits. We started adding vegetables. We started blending, just different things into his Cerelac. And it helped him to transition. So I think you want to do that very carefully. You don't want to do it drastically where she notices the taste. You want to just do it gradually. And then let her start adopting that new taste. And then gradually, you just evolve her from it. I think start there. The right kinds of fruits, vegetables, just start adding it into the free-so cream. Then for my sister who is on the supplements and your child is old enough now, I think, to start weaning off all this, special diets. So for me, gluten-free and casein-free and all that has never really been my jam. It's always been about finding whole foods, healthy, clean foods, our natural foods. Anything in a package, try to avoid it. Anything that is that is longer than a name that you can pronounce, try to avoid it. So for me, if it is from the farm, if it is something that is fresh and natural food, then you can incorporate it into her diet. She wants to eat your spaghetti, let her have some of your spaghetti. But there are ways that you can still keep her diet clean. There are ways that you can still, there's so many alternatives to all these foods. So for example, eba. My son doesn't eat eba because it's quite starchy, and starch converts to sugar. But he'll eat tiger nut swallow. Sometimes I'll turn sweet potato into a swallow for him. There are things that you can still use to carry that very delicious stew. So it's just about becoming just very creative, and you don't have to spend so much time in the kitchen. If you have a few staples that your child likes, just play with them. And like I said, she can start enjoying your foods. She actually can start enjoying your foods as long as there's no sign of regression. But pay attention. If you start seeing that maybe you're beginning to see certain symptoms redevelop again, then of course you know that what has changed is the diet. Supplementation as well. For example, you don't have to go and be buying only pills. We can find out what is the actual nutrient value of this supplement. So if it's something that is more like you need, maybe you can find it in carrots, you can find it in spinach, you can find it, then just give them more of that. If you're looking for potassium, give her more bananas. More, maybe baked plantain. You don't want to do too much of frying. So it's about just doing your research and finding alternatives. And my book has all these alternatives. It has a lot of recipes. It has a lot of details about some of these things that I also have tried and have been able to help to surmount, negative diet repercussions for my child. So,
thank you very much. I know our time is up, but I'll still love you to answer any of the questions that were posed.
So I really wanted to touch on this because I'm a mom of a child who has had very strong food aversions, and I know how frustrating it is when you want to give your child the best food and they refuse to eat it. I had a point where she was eating only yogurt for like 1 month. At a point, she didn't eat anything that had meat for 1.5 years. And this is someone who was eating well, in her younger years. So it's very frustrating. But I think, like Tolu said, hide things. There's nothing I've not blended. There's nothing I've not hidden. There's nothing I've not, hide them. And also they're very particular. So if it's a different color, a different temperature, one thing is off, they won't eat it. So you just have to keep trying. It's very frustrating. But you keep trying to find how you can add these healthy foods and these additives that are going to be, good for them into their food. And also that's why supplementation, is so important as well, because they get those nutrients from the food that they're not getting. As someone whose daughter is on a specific diet as well and doesn't like, to always eat those things, I apply an 80-20 rule. 80% of the time she eats the good things for her. 20% of the time I let her be a child. I don't know, professionally if that's good, but I make sure that 80% of her diet is healthy. And sometimes I'll let her, she'll tell you, Ribena is bad, Coke is bad, because she knows we don't have those type of things. But sometimes I do. And I want to mention very quickly that when I started healing her gut, is when she actually started trying new foods. So we first worked on the issue, and then we started introducing the healthier foods, and I found that she was more receptive to, eating better when she had like a better microbiome, and, her gut was healed, and we're supplementing her, right? So try, backward integration, try healing, and then try introducing the new foods as well. And I wish everyone all the best.
Thank you very much. Please, let's give our panelists another warm, thunderous. Let's shake Red Carpet Hall a little bit with our applause. I've learned so much, and I'm sure that you have. And also, let's applaud the convener of Sente 2025 Conference and Trade Fair, Mrs. Moody Nwachuku, as she joins us on stage for a picture. And applaud yourselves. You've all been asking correct questions. I've loved the conversation. We still have one more panel discussion and then a presentation on the value of play. We have a presentation, so please don't yet leave. We have another panel discussion. We also have a talk on the value of play. As I mentioned earlier, we still have food outside that you can purchase, drinks outside you can purchase. And when we finish the fourth panel discussion and the presentation on play, we have the exhibition area, and would like you to go and shop, go and ask questions, network, and make the most of your time here at Sente 2025 Conference and Trade Fair. I hope we've been learning a lot. We've been taking down notes. Please, this conference is not just for you. It's for your family. It's for your schools. It's for your communities. It's for your churches. It's for your mosques. We all can be advocates here as we're getting blessed with so much information. Let's not be selfish. Let's share. Sometimes it's sharing on our social media platforms. So please continue to share using our hashtag Sente2025. Share on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, formerly Twitter. Let's get the word out there. Our final panel, which is our fourth panel, is looking at estate planning. I know in this part of the world, when someone mentions death, it's to do like this as many times. God forbid, it's not my portion. Back to sender. No. Death is a debt we all owe. And we'll live, we'll die. And the worst thing is when we have children, we have wards, we have loved ones who are vulnerable, and we've not put in measures in place to protect them. We've not put the right things in place. So estate planning, please don't look at it as something that is for the future. There was a question that came up about intervention. Do you start at 2? Do you start at 9? With estate management, the earlier the better, because you never know when death comes knocking at the door. And we want you to have the information you need, so that should you have to leave or you're not in a position to provide the kind of care, you know what is available. For some people, it might be an insurance, it might be a trust fund, will, an endowment. But I'm glad that we have, I would like to call them legal impresarios in the building. We have people of the law who know what the law says and can advise us. And we have people too in investment. We have people who are also living this. They have children who are adults now, and they are putting things in place for them. So I'm really excited about our fourth and final panel. And like I said, right after that panel, we have a presentation on the value of play. So we've been talking a lot about play, and I'm really looking forward to that. Right after that, we'll have questions and answers, an opportunity to stretch, to visit the exhibition area, to also network with people, exchange contacts, and to be a part of this movement, be a part of this community. It doesn't just start and end at the conference and the trade fair. We're hoping that you're making connections, so that when you say, I am not alone, you really mean it because it's true and you believe it, because indeed you found people who are in the same boat. You have people who are taking care of children with special needs, additional needs, extra needs, and they're thriving, and you can draw off that energy. So we want you to continue to engage with us, continue to ask those questions, and we'll try as much as possible to ensure that we don't go past the allotted time. So I'm going to invite our panelists. We have some of them here physically, and we have one who will be joining us virtually. She's currently not around, but she said she must be a part of this conversation because of how important it is. It's something we don't talk enough about. What happens when you're gone? What happens when you die to your children who are living with special needs? So we'll move to our fourth and final panel. Like I said, we have the legal impresarios in the building, not the law that you know from social media and from skits. This is the law gongo. So please join me in welcoming a legal expert, the managing partner at Oak Legal, where she leads the corporate and investments and financial services practice groups. She has extensive experience in M&A, corporate and project finance, capital markets, private equity, and she has played a vital and pivotal role structuring and advising on numerous high-impact financing transactions. Like, what I'm saying is, when it comes to money, she's Siabiam. She know you know, when it comes to handling millions and billions, from the legal aspect, please, I want you to make welcome. I know you were getting ready to clap because you want me to announce. Please make welcome Kenechi Ezezika. Woo! Cheer her on, make her feel special. Who knows, she might just dip into all that private equity money and just say, give away. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, this is a panel filled with, you know, legal heavyweights. So when it comes to knowing what the law says, and, you know, not knowing the law is not an excuse. So you can't say, oh, had I known. That's why you're here at Sente 2025 Conference and Trade Fair. Another person who likes to do the talk, doesn't want not so much, you know, introduction, and she wants you to know that, you see, this legal work, she knows what she's saying. She's sound. She has the expertise. She has the experience. And she's not just a lawyer. She's a legal expert. People who come fully loaded with all the experience, the expertise. And she's just eager, willing to share from that legal experience and expertise. So please join me in welcoming Damilola Odunubi. And I dare say she's looking the part, very beautiful. I love the attire. I love the glasses. Everything is fleek. Yes, we have our final panelists who will be joining us via the live stream with Zoom. She can't be here physically, but she wants to be a part of this conversation. And she needs no introduction when it comes to being an advocate when it comes to special needs. She has been doing that for years. She is a leading advocate for Nigeria's autism community. She's the founder of the Patrick Speech and Language Center, established as far back as 2006, and it is the country's first autism center. She continues to do a lot of advocacy work through the Pure Souls Learning Foundation. She provides services like speech therapy, occupational therapy, and she has lots of success in integrating children with autism into mainstream schools. She needs no introduction, but please make her feel very special and welcome Mrs. Adedotun Akonde. Woo! Let her feel it where she is. And she won't know, but she's already here at Red Carpet Hall Event Center here in Lagos, Nigeria. So I'll just join. No, I'll just stay here. Yes, I love it too. So I'll go straight into the conversation. Something that has come out from the questions and answers. Parents recognize the solutions, but they also recognize how expensive it can be. Dollar, importing, finding these things. And if they're already struggling now that they are alive, how much more when they are no longer here? So what are some practical tips that parents can start to implement in estate planning? What can they do? They might not have thousands of dollars or millions of naira now, but what can they do to planning for when they are not here with us physically? And that would be my general question to everyone. So I'll start with you, and then we'll go to you, and then we'll go to Mrs. Akonde on Zoom. She'll be our third panelist. We'll start here.
Good afternoon, all. I'm really happy to be here with you. Well done to you and to the rest of the team. This topic is really is one I'm passionate about. I'm a warrior mom myself, and it's something that used to keep me awake at night. What happens when we are no more? And as much as we don't like to think about it, it is sure to happen, unless, but it is sure to happen, right? It's more likely that you will leave this earth than you will not. So the only thing we can do is to plan for when we are not here. Because what you don't want to happen is your treasures, who you've poured so much into, you've suffered so much while you're here, trying to, recover, or trying to make their lives comfortable, or trying to give them the best you can within your own resources. All of a sudden, they are left to suffer. Nobody is taking care of them. Nobody cares for them. Nobody is interested. You don't want that. And then, God forbid, they are roaming the streets and things like that. So you need to think about what happens when I'm gone. It doesn't mean you are going to go tomorrow. It doesn't mean you are going to go next month. It could mean that you may go in 70 years, in 80 years, but what happens when you are gone? So I would say, as a first step, I guess we'll get more into it, but we should think about your wills. Even if you don't have anything, even if you have 10,000 naira in your bank account, even if that's all you have, you need to start thinking about it. You should start thinking about how to invest money, how to set up trusts, right? As a basic trust system, nothing too complicated or fancy. Just something that will continue earning and will continue providing, even if it is small, for when you are no longer here.
So begin to think about it and make those investments now. Right, that we'll find out about setting up a trust.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a warrior mom myself, and this is a bit more than personal for me. Apart from me being a warrior mom, my dad died when I just turned, I think, 7. I was just about to turn 18, and he died without leaving anything. And so, as we all know, we're Africans, right? You cannot imagine, we'll not talk about them badly, but you can imagine what happened. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And I asked myself, after I started to work, was what if something does happen to me? And what are the steps that I needed to take? What were the things that needed to be done? What would I have loved for my father to have done differently to take care of me and my siblings? And because of that, I'm very much interested in people saying, you know what, I have 5,000 naira. I think generally it's very simple these days. Mutual funds account can be opened with 5,000 naira. It's really not a big deal. So you open your 5,000 naira account and your children would be thinking about it. You have something to live for. A lot of times when we have this topic, it sounds very morbid. People don't want to talk about it. I always talk about it with a smile. I was very particular about wearing colors today to make people say that, look, it is actually not a sad conversation. It's a realistic conversation. It is, I am telling you what, if I love you, I will tell you the truth, you know. And so this is one topic that I feel like if we never have, we will never be honest with ourselves. It would make us question ourselves as parents. It's almost like you saying you're not going to send your children to school. It's very similar to that. It's actually that's important. It is. And so, like my colleague said, my learned colleague did say, it's what are your first steps? I would say write your assets down. I have a biro. I have a pencil. I have an eraser. I have a phone. Yes, the screen is bad, but I have it. I rent an apartment. You know, people always wait for when we buy properties, but I rent an apartment. I rent it at this address. I'm renting it. For guess what? For the period that you are renting it, it is your own. And by law, your children are entitled to live in that apartment for that period. Are we correct? Yeah. So you see, it's actually very simple. It's actually not that deep as we try to make it complicated. It is the rich people that have complications. You see, we poor people, it's not that deep for us. And I think for myself, it's actually not that deep. I have shoes. I have Brazilian jewelry. It doesn't necessarily have to be gold. You know, I have this human hair that I bought that maybe my auntie even gave me. But guess what? It is yours. And you have a right to determine who you want to give it to. If you want your child, who is a special child, to own it, why can't you state it in a document? What's so hard? Why do you have to keep it in your mind? Why does it have to be your thoughts? Why can't you write a sheet of paper and write it down? Meet an expert like myself or her, or anybody that you know. Actually, please, not family and friends. Let me just state that now. And write this down. And then, you know, from there, we start to build something that looks complex in quotes, but it's really not. So that would be my first take.
Thank you very much. We'll move to Mrs. Akonde, who's joining us via Zoom. Yes.
Everybody over there. Pleasure to be here. Sister Moody, for this wonderful conference that she has put together. And also welcome politician Danny. When I realized that I would be in town, I asked her to take on the role on my behalf in speaking my mind, and I sent some notes tonight. So I'm not sure how the connection will be, but as long as I'm able, I'll stay here. In my own opinion, the most important, the best thing you want to do for your child to be comfortable when you're gone is to equip that child with the life skills that he or she needs to start with. I heard when somebody was saying that it's difficult to particularly Down syndrome children with Down syndrome. I shudder when I hear like that because it's difficult, but it is not impossible. It takes a lot of work to get our children to have life skills. And life skills is something you do not want to joke with. No matter how severe the disability is, your responsibility is to make sure that that child can manage to the best of his ability on his own. And then the involvement of the saints, I mean, that cannot be taken for granted. You must start from the very beginning. I know many of you know Efe Irele. She's an actor, as they say. When she was growing up, her mother paired her with her brother. Efe, this is your brother. This young man is your brother. Ben depends on you. I mean, if Ben sneezes, the entire family, the entire family comes to his rescue. One thing we want to Charlie environment where we have expanded family, extended family. We want them to be involved in that child's life. Because if anything happens to you, sometimes it may not even be the siblings, it may be the cousins. We've seen cases where the cousins have come in, to support that child. Involve your family. Don't let us lean on this Nigeria that says that, oh, this person is the one that is there. So you start shielding that child away from the community. Our children thrive when we open them into the community. They really live a functional life. Forget the fact that they are not speaking. Forget the fact that the disability is quite severe. Once you begin to open that child to people, ask people like Bukola Ade, whose child has severe cerebral palsy, but has a very strong way in communicating her needs to her family. So we must move away from this, I want my child to be in quote and unquote normal. What we want is the child to have a full and functional life skills and prepare situations that will make that child comfortable when you are gone. Start to talk about it when the child is 10, when you know that this child
we're losing you, ma.
To support that individual.
Thank
Sure
you,
that
ma.
you have the right resources on ground to cater for that. In regards to resources, I leave Dami and my other sister to talk about that because they are more in the field, in the financial field. But from the social aspect, we need to open the road up for our children to be able to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma. That preparation for life, yes. So my last set of questions, and then we'll open it up for questions. Yes, you're free to add something, and I also wanted you to maybe play around with some numbers because sometimes people think, oh, writing a will, setting up a trust, you need lots of money, or maybe it's as simple as mutual funds. Like you gave the example of 5,000 naira, you're putting it aside. So really practical, and then please add to what was being said.
Thank you. Just to add to what Mrs. Akonde said, when my son was younger, he was very disruptive. So at a point, it was just easier to leave him at home when we were going out, just so that we don't have to deal with the drama. But my sister said something to me one day. She said, this young boy, he was like 3 or 4, that you keep leaving at home, you don't want to expose him to us. We won't understand him. If something happens to you, where would we start from? Is it not better that we all know, we all see this thing that you are saying that he does? Let us see it. Let us understand it. If something happens to you, at least we will know where to start. We will know how to continue what you have been doing. And just fit into something that Mrs. Akonde said, and it struck me then that really, 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 nothing, even the next second is not guaranteed. Sorry about the black, but even the next second is not guaranteed. You don't know. Nobody knows when anything would happen. So you have to prepare. Not being, I mean, yes, we all say God forbid it will not happen, but you don't know. You don't know what God has in store for you. You don't know. So you just need to plan accordingly. Expose your children. Let them have a social life. Let them let your people, your trusted circle now, it may be your family, it may be your friends, it may be your cousins, it may be anybody that you trust completely. Let them understand your children or your child. Let them know where you are coming from, so that if anything happens, at least they understand, oh, this person, or this is how, this is what, when he's doing like this is what he wants, or when he's doing like that, this is what, I mean, we all pray to live long, we all pray that our children will also live long and all that, but just in case, you need to have all those things in place. In terms of practical numbers, making a will is really not, just look, it's not too expensive. My colleague said whatever it is you have. I would even say one of the most important things in a will at this stage, especially when you have children that are minors, is indicating who would take your child if something happens to you and your spouse. Because it is possible, and we have seen in the last 1 year at least, something, something can happen to you and your spouse at the same time. We don't want that. We don't pray for it. But if that happens, what's going to happen to my children? Would that my uncle, who I don't understand and he doesn't understand me, would he now come and take my children and be mean to them? You need to set out in your will, this is what I want to happen to my child or my children, whether they are neurotypical or they are not. This is what I want. This is who I want to take care of my children. And of course, please, you need to tell the person so that the person is not blindsided. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For me is, I always think about I have 2 boys. I think about my boys as I have a life, they have a life. Like, y'all don't stress me. That's where I look at 2 of them, whether neurotypical or not. I look at the 2 of them and I say, you have your name, you have your father's name, the same way I have my father's name. We all came to this life to enjoy. Meaning that I try as much as possible to build them in such a way that if I'm not there, they will cope. Now, that being said, I also know that I have a child who will require a second look. When I mean a second look, we all know. And I also understand that. So what do? I throw him in a deep end. What do I mean by deep end? So I might come to your house and drop him and walk away. You guys will figure it out between 2 of you. He will scream. He will ask him what happened. He will scream again. The same way I'm coping. Yes, so the same way I'm coping. You see, because I wasn't built for it either. I learned it. Am I being honest with you guys? I had to grow up. I didn't ask anybody that I have this special gifts about me that can help me train an autistic child. Hell no. Sorry for my French. I didn't. As I'm like, because I look like a baby girl, I didn't need stress. I like soft life. So the same way I, Oluwadam Lola, am managing it. You, my mother, you, my sister, you, my friend, that you call yourself my friend and my sister. When I drop my son with you, you are just with your children. If you have any, and if you don't, there goes your adopted son. And all of you would manage. It took a lot from me, and Auntie Dotun, who knows, I don't call her, I know her, I can't even imagine how many years. She took it, but I took the bull by the horn. And I said one of us will give each other peace. Because I won't be there forever. My dad hasn't been here for over 20 years. I'm surviving. God bless my mom. She'll be here forever, please. But you get my point. Aside from that, I have a document. I have my trust that has everything concerning my son. Even to the milk that he drinks, to the type of rice that he eats. I'm constantly updating. To the kind of crayons that he likes. To the fact that he doesn't like buttoned shirts. He can't stand them. Only round necks. So do not buy my child any button shirt. He's not going to wear it. So, and if you buy the first time, I'll return it back to you and say, sorry. We don't used to wear that type. Sorry, I did not tell you. We keep it for his younger brother. But I try as much as possible to drag everybody. You see, what we need to understand is that the people that love your children will love your children, whether you like it or not. And so we need to stop overthinking this thing. But if you don't give them a chance in the society, how would you know? If you are too afraid and you're hiding the child behind the door, the first thing you will hear from me, maybe you miss me within 2 minutes, I have an autistic son. It seems like pride. I used to wear it on my shirts. I don't waste time. I'm very quick. So we can all quickly adjust ourselves. There's no shame in it. I have a Down syndrome cousin. Beautiful girl. Love her so much. So there was the problem there. If I may ask, they will beat the child. Then you remove the child, you don't take the child there again. You've learned your lesson, yeah? But we need to understand that the society can only be brought in as much as we want them to be brought in, like she said, like Auntie Dotun has said. And we need to train these children in such a way that they can live themselves and understand that they can do these things themselves. But with the help legally and socially, you can't leave one out of the other. That would be my thing.
Thank you very much. We'll just get final contributions from Mrs. Akonde if she's still with us. If not, we'll be able to take questions. I know this is a very hard topic, but so many important things have been said, and I love some of the things you have said about bringing everybody into the party and being very specific. You said, oh, who is going to take care of my child? You've told the person, should I die, this person, and you've even gone as far as, I can just imagine a Google document that gets updated, the rice, the milk, the clothes. I think these are practical tips that we can all begin to have, because whether or not we like it, we might not have children who have special needs, but you said you have a cousin. We all know somebody here. And if we're inclusive, not just by mouth, but in reality, and we're mainstreaming this kind of conversations, it will be like, so, HIV, now it's like, what's the big deal? So we can get there. More people, like I love it, that energy of letting everybody know, okay, and we'll all get on with it. So I'm not sure we've been able to get.
I have a story that she wanted me to share, if you don't mind. It was she shared it with me last night. Like I said, I'm her protege. It was about a girl that she said who was on the spectrum. She was living with her mom, shielded by her mom for such a long time. Unfortunately, her mom died. And okay, so before her mom died, her mom had married a man for her. Please I need us to pay attention to this story very well. Her mom had married a man from her, and the man had come to live in the house with her and her mom, right? And then her mom died. And when her mom died, husband did not know what to do, because mommy apparently used to manage everything for this girl. So mommy has gotten someone to cook for her, to clean for her. Girl literally had absolutely no life skill. And it became, how do we manage this girl? Her siblings had to fly from the US or the UK, I don't remember where, back to Nigeria to try and manage the whole situation. Now, the house that mommy was living in with her was a rented apartment, meaning that at one point the rent would expire. And so there was a lot of confusion here and there. And so Auntie Dotun had to step in. Please, can everybody give a round of applause to Patrick's speech? For the things that they do online and offline is really amazing. And so Auntie Dotun had to step in to, put her life, to take control of this girl's life. They taught this girl some life skill, which this girl said, I found a job for this girl. She started going to work. I think they started off with 3 times a week, so she was able to go every week. I remember, because she's on the spectrum, you really can't do much. Good news is that the girl has, found a balance. She's working. They're able to pay for their rent. The man is working also. The mom's house that she owned was able to pay rent for the house, so there's not a lot of pressure on the family. But please, can anybody see the loopholes in this whole story? Mommy did not have a will. Let's even start with that. Daughter did not have a life skill. Another problem. Thank God there's Patrick's speech that was able to come in. What if there are a lot of stories that there's no Patrick's speech in their story, right? It's the one that Auntie Dotun can able to pick up that she will jump on. And how many is she going to do, really? Which is why we must start with ourselves and train our own children and those that are around us on how to manage. People always say that I may be funny when you tell me your child is non-verbal. I'm very emotionless about it. I'm like, then teach them sign language. What's your challenge? The child, Abi, let's not kill everything until there is no life. Yeah, is when there is no hope at all. But provided there is life and the child can do something, then you move on. Then you find something. You wipe your. See, I'm a big advocate for crying. Please cry hard. When you cry hard, when you enter your room and you cry from your belly, cry hard. When you are done crying, clean your tears and say, what's next? Not every child is going to be a mathematician. Not every child is going to be the next Einstein. Not every child is going to know 1 thing, 2 thing, 3 thing. Some children,
You see that artwork when they draw it for you, or some children when they make some beds for you, and you see the alignment, you don't be like, stop it. You don't even need anything. I'm not joking. It's not everybody's child that the person that made this dress now, I don't know whether she went to school. Does that matter? You just like the dress, Abby. There you go. So let us focus on what the child can actually do. Teach them. As I'm like this, I've told my son, I can't wait for you to start earning money, because you see that jets, I must enter jets. Forget that one. I don't know how he's going to earn the money. I don't really care. If like let him not know maths, that's his business. Whatever he knows, I will focus on it. English, it seems like he likes English. Sorry. We're going to go into professor in English. I don't really care. But that's his business. I don't bother. My own is that you will do something in your life, because I must live my life. It's personal to me. Me. Because I can't have suffered for so many years and now I'll be crying over a child. Sorry, I can go between Yoruba and Igbo sometimes. But yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you very much for sharing that story. Like, we're keeping it real here. I'd like you to also share other tips that parents can start to implement. Even I know that there are adults now to also know, okay, when I'm not here, how can you even have such conversations? Because some parents or caregivers are working with adult children, and it feeds into that whole preparing for life, but also letting them know, like, these are the things that are in place. How can we begin to do that? And then once she responds, we'll take questions. So let me just see by show of hands if we have any questions, so we can give numbers. And then, okay, is that your hand going up? 1, 2, okay. Those 2 hands, right? We have 2 questions. Okay. So I'd like you to answer, and then we'll take the 2 questions. Thank you.
Okay. So I would say there are different aspects, right, to planning for the future. There's the social aspect, which we've said a lot about. There's the financial aspect. You may not have much, but if you put, Dami mentioned mutual funds taking as little as 5,000. 5,000 perhaps, maybe that's maybe that's money you would have blown away on something during the month. You know, if you actually you can find 5,000 and you say, okay, every month I will set out 5,000, I'll put it in a reputable financial advisory firm, a mutual fund, or another kind of investment. Believe me, and you're putting it there. You're putting it there every month. It just goes automatically. You're not even, it's automatic debit from your account every single month. It will create a very tidy sum for you, right? Which, you know, you may decide in 5 years, in 10 years you want to use, or you may decide, you know what, let me just leave it, let it just continue to grow. Let's just continue to grow, right? And then you put it down. This is how, you know, this money, if anything happens to me, this is what it should be used for. You can, if you are blessed and you are buying properties, you can decide, let me buy a property in the name of a company. Let me put myself, my children, you know, anybody you like, maybe a close friend or something, as shareholders in this entity. So if anything happens to you, that property is still there, is in the name of that company, and your child or whoever, you know, is able to enjoy the benefits of that property. So if you just put it in boxes, it's not, it's a lot, but it's not a lot. And it's something that each and every one of us can manage to do if we absolutely set our minds to it. What you need to remember is that irrespective, I'm going to be gone one day. My children, no matter what, should be catered for. Now, for your neurotypical children, you may not in quote care that much. You may say, I've had someone say to me, I suffer to make my wealth. They should do what they have to do. But if you have a child that is neurodiverse, you know that it may not be. And if I flow from Dami, yes, you may be determined that the child would make it and the child would be independent. But you really can't tell what is going to happen. And as much as you are able to, you should try to provide something for that child. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ricard. Yes, please put your hands together. You're getting free legal advice courtesy of Sente 2025 Conference and Trade Fair and our amazing panelists. As I said, legal impresarios. So, want to know the difference between trusts and wills? Because a lot of times people say, oh, just leave a will, and then the will, tomorrow they are fighting. Like we've seen that play out in the media. Maybe, like you said, is rich people's wahala. But we pray that we'll all be rich one day and enter private jets. So let's prepare for that rich life. Let's take the two questions and then we'll address wills and trusts.
All right. My question is centered on the social aspect of it. Leaving the child with family members and friends. You know, we've had cases where some of these children are being molested. Just last week, one of the therapists was sharing with me that there's a particular child she's taking 4 years, she's an autistic child, that she came back from school and she started bleeding from the vagina. So, and I was like, something must have happened to that child. But she was telling me no, that the doctor said probably there is a reaction that took place. So, leaving these children with people, don't you think there is a clock there? Because the society we live in is very wicked. So I really wanted to throw more light to that.
Okay, thank you. Can we take the second question and then we'll answer everything at once?
Okay, so for the second question, I want to appreciate the speakers that have spoken about trust and what we can do. I am a special needs mom. Fortunately, I have been doing what I think Ms. Dami suggested. Every month for all my children now, I put, it's automatic. I put certain I open account for all of them, and certain amount goes into the account every month. But now, my daughter, I'm wondering, how do I begin to, because I know that my plan, what I'm thinking is that maybe by the time they are 18, 20, I can be able to hand over, because it's a joint, but I'm in control of the account, right? Now, I'm now wondering, for my daughter that is with Down syndrome, because I know that most likely, even at age 20, she might not be able to actually be left alone to manage the account. How do I now begin to, is there any, I've always wondered whether the banks can allow her at that state to be able to run the account, and if not, how do I begin to like you, ma'am, I think Ms. Dami, I try to tell my daughter, yes, I tell my other kids that, see, peace is your responsibility. Anywhere you go, if anything happens to her, I don't care. What happened? Why? You should be there. You should be concerned. You should be. I don't want to know whatever that happened. When I come back, oh, it's peace. I say, where were you? I try to put them in charge. I try to make them to understand that they are likely to be responsible to her, for life. Even if I teach her life skill anyway. So how do I begin to do that? Because I've been like wrapping it all around my head. Okay, she's having something now. We are preparing, but I know there are a lot of bad people all over the places. Yes. How do I prevent so that they don't take advantage of her to assess what belongs to her?
Thank you for those very important questions. So we'll start with you.
So as it was earlier said, I'm a trustee. Not by choice. I don't even know how I'm becoming a trustee, but let's just leave that one aside. So I think my answer will work for both of you. The reason why is I remember in my former life, I had a client, and sorry that this time you have to increase by like 20 minutes. And I'll say, in my former life, I had a client who had passed on years ago, and he had a little daughter, not on the spectrum. But she was the youngest of all the children. And she was still in secondary school. All the other older children had gone off to married and whatever. He had created a trust in his will. And I know that we'll discuss the differences between trust and wills. But what he did was create a testamentary trust. Testamentary trust is a trust that takes effect after death. Right? We'll talk about the details, but let's just understand that there was a trust created. And because of that, it meant that my company now became responsible for this child.
meaning that my company was now the father of this child, meaning that if anything happened to this child, as I who was handling the family trust, it became my responsibility, meaning that if there was a meeting in school, I showed up. Meaning that if there was something wrong with her medical bills, I showed up. And you can imagine when I'm passionate about something, imagine kind of showing up I used to do. So randomly, I would just pick up my bag and go to school and see where that child was. If anything happened, I would go. Not because I'm also passionate, but it was also a duty of care that I owed the client. In a trust document, where you will see is that the trustee owes a fiduciary duty. Fiduciary duty is, how do I break it down? If the trustee owes the trust or to care, let me put it, legally has the right to care for this person, has the right, legally should ensure that nothing happens to this individual or to this property. So when you see fiduciary, that's basically in simple terms, that's what it means. And so it meant that I had to, as a trustee, legally be responsible for this girl that I did not know of. It didn't matter whether she was from my family or not. It meant that nothing must happen to her, whether school, whether at home, whether what socially, whatever it is. What happened that when I sat at a meeting, I was seen as her father. Right? And so in situations like that, where you have a child who is being molested, might be molested in a family, the best is to just create a trust for this child. And I struggle with when we give individuals, because you see, with individuals, we're very passionate, but with a company, what would happen is there's a check and balance. Not to have any issues, there's a check and balance. Somebody's going to check through audits. There's going to be audit, there's going to be internal control to say what is going on here, what's happening here, why has this child not been checked in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks. The trust document expects that you're supposed to give reports to the family every quarter, right? So the audit will come and say, we didn't see the reports that was submitted to the family every quarter on this particular trust. What happened? Do you understand? You go and give back feedback to your meetings. And so for me, if you ask me, I don't have a problem with wills. I have a will and I have a trust. But the thing is that when it comes to caring for the children in detail, on who will be responsible, like the person that asked the question at the back, I would say create a trust. First of all, the child will be too young to even, if she's 20 years old and she's not really able to manage herself, mentally, then a trustee will be able to make decisions for her. And that trustee will not be able to make decisions by themselves because they will have to pass through what? Or the right control. And so for me, it will be look for a company, a trust company. I think we have Meristem trustees. I can mention Meristem trustees. We have Meristem trustees here. You everybody give them a round of applause for coming. Meristem trustees, someone can advise you on how best to do this. I don't work in Meristem, but yeah, that's what I would suggest to you. I don't know if you have.
Thank you very much. We only have about 4 more minutes.
Yes, can I just add, it's probably not, it might not be expensive, so price may not be a barrier. Sometimes when you have these conversations with these trust houses, you see that it's something that you are able to manage. And if you cannot manage it, yes, I understand that using a company is better because you have those checks and balances. But if you cannot manage it, still get an individual that you trust and you name as the trustee for this child. You get, has to be somebody that you trust. It doesn't, if you don't trust your mom with your child, and some people don't, and it's okay, it doesn't have to be your mom. It can be a friend that you absolutely trust, that friend, no matter what, even if the friend doesn't have money to feed herself, the friend will not go and dip into my child's money to feed herself. The friend is such that she will use that money only for my child. The important thing is, it's somebody, if you can't do a company, you should do an individual, but you should set it up. And for the difference between a will and a trust, I mean, in a will, you just typically give assets. So this is my property. I give it to Tolu. I give it to Moody. I give it to you, when I'm gone. Now, a trust can be testamentary, as she mentioned. That is given, it's created in the will, or it can be a living trust. You create it while you are still alive. Now, in this instance, you are saying, in the event of my death, this money that I have here, this person, I'm appointing I'm giving this money to my daughter, and I'm appointing this person as trustee to manage this money for my daughter. Do you get? So that is a trust you have created in a will. You can also create the trust outside a will and say, or you go to a trust house and you create it. It's a trust deed. It's a document. You probably need to get a lawyer who knows what their onions to draft one for you. And you're saying, this is how this property or this asset, please manage it. When you manage it, the funds, when you make money from it, use the money to do this. Or I have this asset that automatically yields me. So in the example we gave of a property, I have this property that every year I get rent, right? When I get that rent, please use that rent, maintain the property. What is left after maintaining the property? Please pay my children's school fees. What is left after paying my children's school fees? Please buy them clothes. What's left after buying them clothes? Please do this, or please do that, or please use it for the care of my children, or give my child an allowance of 10,000 up until this age, or up until the time where it is certified that my child is has the acumen enough to be able to manage the funds by him or herself. So it is very, very important. Even if you do create a will, if you have a neurodiverse child, I will suggest, and I mean, there's a whole spectrum. So every child is different. Every child has different abilities. There are some Einsteins in our midst who, they won't have a problem. But there are some people that would need care for a long time, even if you do everything you possibly can on this earth to make them independent. There are some people that will still need care. In which case, please try to create a trust for those people so that they have something that they're able to live on.
So let's just to add, in my past life, I do have a client who created a trust for her son. He's 55 now. That trust has been running for 55 years. It's so weird. And he's on the spectrum. He can't, sometimes he goes on, sometimes he has his good and bad days. And the trust will manages everything concerning him. They pay his bills, they pay everything that he needs to do and all of that. He works sometimes when he's able to keep a job, he'll work and all of that. But the trust is responsible for him even now. In fact, the day I found out that he was 50, and then I was working with the trust, he was 50 something years old. She'll be about 55 now. I was so stunned. And so that means that the mother or his parents had thought about it far off, that this guy will need a trust. So you can imagine how much they've kept him standing and alive. It's such an amazing thing to see. So it's not a what's the word, I'm dying now situation. It's I'm leaving a legacy. Yeah, I'm leaving a legacy for my child, and unfortunately this child might need more of me than I would normally have given every other child. And so what do I need to do? Create a situation, create an environment that's conducive for this particular child. And it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I think we have a question at the back. If you can just take one more question. I do apologize. I don't know. This thing should have been 2 hours. Sorry. Moody.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you so much to the panel. You've really given us a lot of insight into a particularly challenging topic. So I think part of the question that's not been dealt with is, consider this. A child is 16. You've set up an account. Funds are flowing to the account. You've been dealing with the child's passports, travel documents. You've been in control of all of that. The child turns 18. He's now an adult. What document, or is there a document that you require as a parent to continue to manage the affairs of that child once that child turns 18? What is the legal instrument that gives you, the parent as it were, the ability to continue to take steps on behalf of that child after he or she turns 18? Thank you.
Thank you for that question.
Okay, thank you. So here in Nigeria, typically your child, right, is a child until 18 or, and then at that 18, that is when they can hold assets, and that is generally when they're an adult. So normally, normally they should have their assets. But when your child is not able to function, doesn't have the, and I'm being careful so that I don't want to sound derogatory, but doesn't have the mental ability to function as an adult, then you as the parent, you continue in that, in quotes, guardianship position until the child is able to function in that way. So you don't necessarily, as the parent, you don't necessarily need a document here. Based on our own laws, you don't necessarily need a document to continue to function as your child's custodian or guardian. No, you don't. As a parent here. Now, if it is that your child, has the ability to function in that way, right? And you, as a parent, you still want to impose your own will and maybe, maybe the child has assets or something and you still want to take the child's assets, obviously you can't, and the child can seek redress against you because the child has the mental capacity to continue to live and to manage his or her own assets without you.
So for me, I think I kind of understand where the challenge is coming from, and I would say, like she did say, in Nigeria there is nothing, but can you do something just to protect yourself? I would say yes. I would say maybe get a mental evaluation, a document. So what do I mean? When I was going to go abroad with my son after he turned 4, I went to the hospital and I got a medical certification to say that he was autistic. Yes, I did have I had an autism report from England and America, but I wanted something to say that I could fly with food and certain things for him because he needed special diet. So I went to the hospital and I got a document signed by a doctor, certified by a proper doctor to say, look, I needed to fly with him with certain needs were required. So if I know that my son at the age of 18 might not be able to manage himself and I would like to be in charge of it, the good thing is I can go to a hospital. I'm not sure anybody's going to contest that and say I can't go to a psychiatric. We have fantastic psychiatric doctors in Nigeria. Let us not even play. We do have. So you can get something. However, when it comes to a trust, remember, the trust is being made from your assets. It's yours, not the child's property. So the child actually doesn't have any right to these assets. Let's be very clear. We're just trying to be kind, for lack of a better word, right? We're trying to give you something. It's not your right. And so I'm putting assets in a trust, whether you're autistic or not, is that I'm giving you something. It's passing on inheritance. It's not your father's money. No, it's not your rightful money. It's my money. Thinking about it, I'm just being nice. And so really, you're not helping the child manage their affairs, in quotes. It's your affairs that you are helping, you are giving this child to manage. You want to help this child use your own assets. So really, there's really not a problem with that. And anytime you create a trust, the trust would say, this is who is in charge of these assets. The child will only be a beneficiary to the trust, not necessarily the owner. Yes, the child, when I say owner, the trust, so when you create a trust, the trust becomes a legal entity. It can be sued also. And so the entity is what owns it. Even though, yes, the child is the beneficiary of it and, in quotes, legally owning it, but they're not the ones legally managing it. I hope I'm not confused everybody. Okay. So, okay, Sam, what another question?
Before he asks, can I add that when you create a trust, you can even create a trust for an adult.
Yes.
Just to speak to that. So you can create it, that you're creating a trust doesn't mean it's because it's a child. You can create a trust. Well, she gave an example of someone that created a trust for a 55-year-old person. So you can create a trust for the adult, and all the adult is entitled to is the proceeds. It depends on what you have put there, but typically it will be the proceeds or whatever. Maybe they're entitled to care up until 30. That's why you see, in what some people will do, even though their children are fully functional, they will still they will say, this is my child. I'm not sure if I give him all this money, he will be frequenting nightclubs, he'll be doing this, he'll be doing that. No. Wait till you're 35. So they will create that trust, keep the money or the assets in a trust, and then now say, just be, give him an allowance every quarter or something like that up until he gets to 35. Now, when he's 30, he cannot get up and say, it's my money, give me my money. He can't do that because, like she rightfully said, it's not his money technically. You have put the legal title of that money or that asset in the trust until the guy or the woman becomes 35 or whatever else age you choose.
So
Okay. Well, thank you. But again, maybe I'm not very clear. So let me. Sorry, madam. What was your name again? I usually like just your name. Ijama. Thank you. So may I call you Ijama? Thank you. As Ijama said, and this is my concern, forget the trust scenario. Let's leave that aside. A child turns 18. That child, like it or not, is an adult. Assume without conceding that the child does not require special needs, but the child is an adult. Any child. Technically, you as a parent or a guardian or anyone else no longer has a right over any asset that belongs to that child. Forget the trust scenario. The simplest example is a bank account, like she said. I think most of us have done this. From our salaries, we say, okay, fine, X amount of money goes to this child every month. Access Bank does it. I know GT Bank does it. And then when that child turns 18, irrespective of whether the child has special needs or not, you, the person who could withdraw money from that account prior to that child turning 18, can no longer do so. The child is incapable of doing so. So I ask the question, in Nigerian law, and if this is a gap, is this something that we need to address quickly? Also, technically, that child, if you wish to travel abroad with that adult, let's stop calling him a child, that adult, there's a requirement. Maybe the passport expires. There's a requirement to renew that passport. I understand that we can go to the Nigerian Immigration Service and say, oh, this is my child, or this is happening. And somebody say, hey, yeah, I understand. Let's sort it out. However, is that right? Is that proper? If another child, if your friend or somebody else wishes to take that child abroad when you cannot, what is the basis of that? Okay, I appointed the person a trustee, maybe, for that child, when the person was a child. But it's not a financial trust. Now, what gives that person the right to go and apply for a passport for that child? Let's assume the child is a dual citizen. What gives that person the right to go to the U.S. Embassy, the Nigerian, whatever it is, and say, I want to apply for this? That is my concern. So if such a thing does exist, please tell us. If it does not, please tell us, and maybe will give us a pathway towards, so that part of the thing that comes out of this conference is we approach National Assembly, we approach State House of Assembly to close this lacuna, because it is a big lacuna. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This will be our final and last question.
Okay. She mentioned something that she does, and you can't do it. You get a medical certificate, first of all, indicating this is a child's condition, this is the issue, and we don't believe that this child has, again, I'm using the words loosely, the mental capacity. This child is like an adult. A diagnosis, whatever, a medical certificate. And then you go to the court and get the court to declare you a guardian of that adult, in quote. With that court order, you can apply for a passport, or, you are basically given custody. You're basically placed as the guardian of that adult, even though that person is no longer a child. So you can do that. You can use that to travel. You can use that to go anywhere you need to go. You can use that to go to the bank and withdraw, because you are a guardian ad idem. You are a guardian over that adult now. I hope that's clarified. We don't, so the way just to be clear, and sorry about this, there are a lot of holes in our laws, and there's a lot that we can do to plug those holes in our laws. Our laws do not adequately see, in fact, our laws do not see children or adults with disabilities. We mainly rely on how the courts in certain instances have interpreted, or what they have done in certain cases, what we call case law. Okay, this is how the judge ruled on this, or this is how the judge ruled on that. our laws are not adequate, and there needs to be there's a lot that needs to be done. And hopefully, very soon, with the special needs community getting stronger and stronger and gaining traction, hopefully very soon we will lead, people to the assembly to pass with the laws that we need, that we think would help to protect our children or our adults living with disabilities. But no, our laws are not sufficient.
So I think I know what you were looking for something like how they do in the UK, whereby when the child becomes 18, the child becomes the state's child, right? That's what you were looking for, child of the. So you have a government, I know that in England, you have a document that once the child becomes 18, the government becomes the owner of the child. Here the child has a special needs. It's something, that's what they usually have in the UK. Unfortunately, like she said, in Nigeria, we don't have. But are there ways that we can get around it? Yes. Which is what I said earlier, she had explained again, is that you go to get a medical report and get it certified in court. And once you have that certification in court, naming you the guardian of that child, based on the child's mental capability, I'm not sure who would stop you from taking decisions on that child. And when I said a trust, that's just an add-on on that basis. It's not the full whole story. There's a whole lot of stories regarding how to manage adults, children living with autism, and it's not, unfortunately for us, it's not something that we have built on yet, and that's because the children that were older than this set of children in the last 20 years, their parents used to hide them or take them abroad, and so we don't have anything. So it's us, to be honest, that we're going to start this revolution to say we have to take care of these people, and this is how we're going to manage it. So I do like the idea of going to National State of Assembly. I'm here for that, but unfortunately, what do we have now? It's just to work with the basic things that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, let's put our hands together for our amazing panelists. Wow. Thank you also for the questions. It really helped to open up the conversation. I'd like to invite again Mrs. Mudi Nwachukwu to join us for a quick photograph. And we'll also have, I believe we'll also have Mrs. Akonde on the screen if we can, if she's still there, and then we can take that picture. Thank you all for the questions and the engaging conversation. We just have one more presentation on the value of play, and right after that we can take more questions. We can go and shop at the exhibition, we can network and really make the most of our time here at Sente 2025 Conference and Trade Fair. So we're just waiting for the IT team to put up the Zoom link. So we have Mrs. Akonde, if possible, but we would also like Mrs. Nwachukwu to join us on stage for the photograph. Yeah, DJ, give us some music. It's a bit, after all that talk about not being here and death, yeah, but I love that we still engaged with it with so much life.
Falala, falala, make a de falala, falala. Blessings upon my life, till they see me for falala. Mama say make I listen to Jah, make I no reason to fall.
Please, ma, can you see more of your face? Bend the laptop so we can see more of your face. Yes! So we can take a picture. So should we start? Okay.
And then you turn on me, all that I seek is in front of me. Isha Oluwa go send it to ye, me mo she shame you. I just stay on my grind every day, I keep my eyes looking up. I should see, I give the glory to God. I should see, I give the glory to God. Isha Oluwa go send it to ye, me mo she shame you. I just stay on my grind every day, I keep my eyes looking up. I should see, I give the glory to God. I should see, I give the glory to God.
Thank you so much. We have a presentation, so please do not be in a hurry to leave.
One man food is another man poison. Leave me to make my own choices. Only see me with the people who love me. Love to the ones that have lost me. I I came from nothing, made it to something, but every day I'm still working. Send me my money, pay me my money, anything that's gonna come me. 2024, I pray to God, make I no follow. Be motion love, be motion ball, do a shop. Don't know tomorrow, save me from sorrow. Running amok, nothing is ever enough. Isha Olúwa kò sẹ́ni tó yé, bí mo ṣe ṣe mí, bí mo ṣe ṣe mí. I just stay on my grind every day. I keep my eyes looking up. I should see, I give the glory to God. I should see, I should see, I give the glory to God. Isha Olúwa kò sẹ́ni tó yé, bí mo ṣe ṣe mí, bí mo ṣe ṣe mí. I just stay on my grind every day. I keep my eyes looking up.
So we have lots of questions on Zoom. We have people maybe who haven't been able to ask all their questions. Maybe they stepped out, they've come back in. After this presentation on the value of play, we will have a time for Q&A. So we'll appreciate it if some of our panelists can still remain so we can take more questions after this. So, as I mentioned, please don't be in a hurry to leave. We'll still have Q&A. I know we've had 3 panel sessions. Maybe some of us are hungry, we're thirsty. Please, we still have food outside for sale. I know some of us have gotten our chops, and we've also enjoyed coffee, we've had water. Please don't be in a hurry to leave. The Q&A, I believe, is one of the best parts of every conference because there's only so much they can say. But having the opportunity to ask a question that is personal to you, to your experience, to your journey, your child's journey is so important. So we encourage you, don't leave even after this panel's, this presentation on the value of play, because we will ask the panelists who are still here with us if they can come back on stage, and then we can take questions. So particularly to people who are also on Zoom too, please don't stop sending in the questions. For those of you who are here, perhaps you've gone to the restroom, you've come back, you've gone outside for a bit of fresh air to stretch, you've got your refreshments, and you're back, and you still have burning questions. That's why we kept time in the agenda to ensure that we can address as many questions as we can. We also have time for you to go and shop. So if you have your eye on a particular product or service outside and you're just waiting, like, oh, I just want to go and buy, don't be in a hurry to leave. Once we're done here, you'll still have the time, the opportunity to visit the different exhibition stands and shop as much as you'd like. Again, I just want us to patronize our exhibitors once we're done with the Q&A and we're done with the presentation. Of course, we have Rimamori Resources, our headline sponsor. We have our gold sponsors, Akabogo and Associates, Oak Legal, Sunlink Energies. We also have Meristem Trustees, Savvy Point, Little Einstein, Nutri Center, Recare Helpmate Services, Patrick Speech and Languages, Omomi Child Care, Punuka Foundation, Clean This, Heal This, Dynalim Technologies, Hale and Hearty, Cradle Lounge Initiative, FOS, Abba Center and Creative Hub, Pleasant Places, Heritage Places, Diary of a Special Needs Mom Initiative. We're very grateful for our media partners, Business Day, TVC News, Punch newspaper, and Premium Times. We just thank you for mainstreaming this conversation, getting the word out there about the amazing work that is being done here today at Sente 2025 Conference and Trade Fair. Please continue to engage with us across our different social media platforms. Use our hashtag Sente 2025. Leave comments, reshare the really beautiful pictures that I've seen online, retweet, post on your stories, and let's get the word out there. Something that has come up very strongly throughout the different panel sessions has been this idea of incorporating play in therapy, in learning, in activities, in daily care. It doesn't all have to be so serious and a hassle. We can intelligently introduce play and creativity, and I'm really excited that we're going to have that presentation that will look at how we can use play, especially in a family setting where we have children or wards with special needs. I also believe that whether you're neurotypical or neurodiverse, play is great, and that's why at different points I've gotten everybody dancing and moving. So please, would like you to engage again. We have a few minutes for that presentation. We'll take questions and then we'll move to the Q&A and then the shopping at the exhibition area. Our next speaker is the Montessori Director and Program Manager. He has almost 2 decades of experience working with children, particularly children with additional needs, special needs in mainstream schools in Lagos. He has established himself as not just a dedicated, but also a knowledgeable professional in the field of early childhood education. Can I see educators in the house? Teachers, educators, administrators in schools, yes. And I believe that even if we're not teachers, we're all students, we're lifelong learners. So this session is for everyone. Our speakers' professional development includes Montessori education, speech and language development, applied behavior analysis, ABA, and sensory motor play. And you can tell that he has this passion, just listening to his bio, his experience for creating inclusive learning environments, and is committed to helping children reach their full potential. I told you we're not playing here at Sente 2025 Conference and Trade Fair. We brought the best of the best, people who know their onions, who walk the talk. So I want you to show appreciation with a resounding, with an earth-shaking, thunderous, rapturous round of applause for Ibokhaode Gabriel. Please, let's make him feel very welcome. DJ, give us some music. Let him feel welcome. I can't hear the clap. Cheer him on. Let him get that Sente 2025 Conference and Trade Fair energy. Let's make some noise for Ibokhaode Gabriel.
But I'll be alright. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope we've had a good day so far. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity of being here. I will try as much as possible to be brief. Play. The occupational therapist will say is the first occupation of a child. The speech and language therapist will say is the first language of a child. I would prefer for an OT to be able to expand on it being the first occupation of a child, but because I've worked largely using play to support children with developmental needs, particularly speech and language delays, I can speak from the context of it being the first language of a child. It has a major influence, particularly in non-verbal communication. the prerequisite skills for speech and language are largely non-verbal. Eye contact, attention, turn taking, affect, cause and effect are largely non-verbal. And for children who may have difficulties with speech and language, for you to begin to build, you need to be able to identify whether these building blocks are there. Because it's for children, particularly in early years, and you're looking at it from the context of development, it's not rigid. It's largely, I would say, informal. So an example I will give is, I won't ask a child to look at me. I'll rather come with a tool that is child-friendly, developmentally appropriate, and place it around the child and see if the child looks. Set the scenario where the child gets to get involved in the interaction. Now, play is the major tool for it. But largely because a lot of times we take it for granted, and largely too because we do not really understand it, we have not really explored it. Now, another way I will try to describe play will be, no house stands without a foundation. Now, culturally, because issues that pertain to foundation are not readily seen to the eye, we take them for granted. But no matter how big that building is, it has to stand on the foundation. Now, play is a foundational thing that we need to understand. It cuts across every area of development. I know I've mentioned speech and language, I know I've mentioned as an occupation, but it cuts across every area of development, particularly in early years. We need to, is a tool to get the children to be comfortable, to build rapport, to be emotionally involved with the individual before we bring other forms of learning. So, like I said before, I've seen it largely from the context of speech and language, where I've used it to help children, particularly with pre-verbal skills. But I think I've also used it, not as much, but I've also used it with children who have mobility difficulties. For children who have motor difficulties, it is an organic way to get the child to begin to move different parts of their body without being rigid. It's a fun way to get the children to begin to get themselves involved in engagement. Particularly for children who may have autism, who at the core of the development of autism is a difficulty with social interaction. For a child to socially interact, the child needs to have a certain quality of rapport with either the environment or the individual. Play is an easy tool for you to use to introduce your concepts gradually, to build relationships gradually, to build interactions gradually, and non-verbally, before you begin to build on other complex forms of development. Largely, our educational system evolved from seeing learning from the context of physical development. So it evolved from touch your ears and go to school. When you touch your ears, you're old enough to go to school. So we saw development purely from the context of if the child looks physically fit for school, the child should be able to go to school. And when we started meeting children who had developmental delays, it appeared strange to us because a child is looking physically fit, the child is looking, he has all the looks, but is obviously unable to engage with society, and society is unable to engage with that particular individual. So we took that area of play for granted. So it's not uncommon to find schools without playgrounds or learning environments without properly organized forms or areas of play. And this has largely not just influenced the lives of children with needs, but children generally. We are meeting more children who may have developmental needs, not because they do not have the read-write arrangement in their schools, but because they do not have the opportunity to explore and challenge their brains appropriately through play. So we thank God for this opportunity and this event, and I believe there are stakeholders here who will begin to engage the modern day developers of our environment and modern day developers of our learning environment where we live and our school environment to create opportunities and environments for our children, not just children with needs, but our children generally to play. At this point, I guess I've said much of what I can say. The charge or challenge for us is to explore play. Play is foundational. Play is not just play. Play is not as unassuming as it is a powerful tool for us to influence the lives of the children we engage or the children we live with a lot more appropriately. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We would like you to remain on stage. You can, before we do the picture taking, we know that some people might have questions, and this is very important. So if you have any, okay, I've not even finished. The hand is already up. Thank you. We'll get a mic to you. We have one question here. Do we have questions from any other parts of the room? Please just put up your hand so we can get a mic to you. And just keep your question brief. Like I said earlier on, once we're done, we'll bring up our panelists who are still here back on stage. So if there's any question you couldn't ask, perhaps on Zoom, you had left it, or I didn't get to you when you put your hand up, we'll be able to take those questions. And once we conclude the Q&A, you'll be free to go to the exhibition area, to shop, to network, and of course, to really enjoy that energy that I believe that Sente 2025 Conference and Trade Fair has been full of.
Okay. Well done. Good afternoon. My name is Olushola Ayodele. I'm an early years and special needs educator, trained Montessori and EYFS. So what I want to say is not really a question, but I want to just affirm what he said about play and how he has miraculously, I'll use the word miraculously, worked for me so far, working with children. And I would like parents here or guardian or instructor to take this seriously and to be intentional about it. There are a lot of issues discussed here today that I know that as an instructor, play has really helped me to work with kids and achieve a lot of things. When the madam was talking about a child who picked food, there are a lot of times that practically play and, you know, as an individual, either parent or instructor, you have to be flexible. You have to know how you can use play, you can use drama to make the children do a lot of thing. And we have to be flexible, not to be really rigid. You want a child to eat something, you want them to change their diet, and it's really shown on your face to that child that you want the child. There are ways that you can play with activities, materials, plates, water bottle, colors that can make that child to eat that thing you want the child to eat without you struggling. It might take time, but sometimes when you take your eyes off it, you don't give them the right materials, just like Montessori is, the right environment, the right materials, tools, and relationship. It will make the child to do a lot of things. There are lots of times that we use play to work on children's behavior. When you talk about ABAL, I want to say there's nothing about special needs that Montessori is not good at. And if you look at the history of Montessori, Montessori looked at...
Sorry, I have to come in there. Just in case other people do have questions. But thank you for affirming what he said. But we would like to take questions. So the microphone, I see a hand up here. Please, questions. Questions. Okay, I see 3 hands up here. So we'll get questions. Sir, if you'd like to sit down, you're free to. Sir, if you'd like to sit down. Sir. Mr. Gabriel, if you'd like to sit down, you're free to. Okay, to take the questions, or if you'd like to stand, that's fine. So we'll take all the questions at the same time. He'll respond before we have our mini photo session. We also have some of our sponsors in the house who would like to say 1 or 2 words, and there'll be an opportunity to hear from them. We have our gold sponsors, Oak Legal, Sun Lake Energies, Akabogu Law, associate sponsors, Meristem Trustees Limited, and of course our headline sponsor, Rima Mori. So do we have the microphone? Yes, you can take your question.
My name is Olubukola Owuni, and my question is this. Is there an inappropriate age to use play therapy?
So this is about age. When does it start? When does it end? What's appropriate and what's not?
Good afternoon. My name is Bridget Odulano. I want to ask, because he was saying to catch the attention of the children sometimes, we play with them and other things. Okay, like a child that doesn't have a direct focus. If like my grandson now, he doesn't have direct focus, and I want to give him food, I want to do some things, and even if I use all these toys to maybe attract him, it doesn't look that way. So what else can I do?
So what other forms of play beyond toys can you employ? I'll remind you, sir. Yes, and then the third one. All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Fumilayo. I'm actually a speech therapist. So my question is, okay, there's this little girl. She's 7. Before now, she's actually hearing impaired. Before now, she signs. But just of a sudden, when she joined our school, she stopped signing, as in the signing language of the thing. She stopped that. So they were like, the mother called me, that what happened? This girl is no longer using this as sign languages. She was like, she doesn't want to sign. She doesn't want to make use of her hand again, because it's actually an inclusive school. So we were like, okay, let's see if she can lip read. So we started with her, and she was actually pronouncing some words like water, mommy, clearly. So my question is, will lip reading really help her, or should we still insist on sign language? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So the first one has to do with age appropriateness for the introduction of play. The second one has to do with other forms of play to engage the child who doesn't have focus, like the grandmother wants to feed her grandchild, and the toys are not effective. And the third one has to do with lip reading, if that is effective enough to replace sign language completely.
Okay. Last question, please. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My 14-year-old son kind of plays excessively. So it has to do with drumming with everything, banging the doors, running up the stairs, up and down. Most times I tell him to go outside. He's rolling his tire excessively. And sometimes it's so much that I have to tell him to sit as a punishment. How do I manage this, his energy? Because we are really getting, it's really so much now that we are always asking him to sit. So we do sit for an hour. When you sit for an hour, you can go outside and do your tires. And probably we want him to be very tired, but he comes back with the same energy. How do I manage his energy? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the questions. I think I'll start with the last one first. No behavior occurs in isolation. Every behavior has an antecedent and a consequence that will either discourage it or encourage it. Now, I'm speaking from the context of ABA. Now, the behavior you have mentioned is activity. He can be active based on the natural ability to be active. He can be active based on other influences, particularly diet. So we are scientists. Whether you are in the lab or you are in your practice as an OT or a physio or a speech, we check. There's no one size that fits all, but a lot of observation matters. Now, one thing I will encourage you with is every behavior can be modified. But you need to understand the reason for the behavior and the consequence that will either encourage it or discourage it. A lot of times we want to modify a behavior, but we have not looked at why the behavior is occurring and what will encourage the behavior. A question I would want to ask, does he sleep well?
10, 11.
And wakes up what time?
Oh, waking up is always work because he sleeps very late. So he can 7, 8.
In the morning?
Yes. We usually go to school by 8 past 8, 8 after 8, yes.
Okay, so he sleeps has a regular amount of time for sleep, so he sleeps well.
Sometimes 10, when I say 10 is that he sleeps early. He might just go to the room and you come out in the night, you open the door, you discover he's awake. So let's say 10, 11, 12.
Okay, something I forgot to mention when I was speaking too, I think it's the best time to talk about it. Unlearning is far more difficult than learning.
Yes.
And this is to prepare anyone who wants to work with a child with a need or working with children generally. Unlearning is far more difficult than learning. So once you have identified the behavior and you have your strategies in place, be prepared with patience. But the critical thing is you must have the right, you must understand what the challenges are. You must have the right kind of plan. Then you must have the stamina to follow through. Now, the beauty about unlearning is that the fact that the child has learned means that the child can unlearn. But every child will test your integrity. Every child will test whether you are ready to follow through. And that's why it said that if you want to modify a behavior and you're not willing to follow through, don't even start. Because what you will do is create a bigger problem and empower the behavior to be stronger. So my advice will be, what you've talked about is largely sensory. He craves, is active. He craves the action. He needs a sensory diet. And I will advise you get an occupational therapist that understands sensory integration to be able to assess and put him on a plan for him to unlearn the behavior. Because this is a dance between sensory and behavior. It's a behavior. Okay. You want to help me? Please, please help me. I'm speaking from the context of seeing it from the context of it being sensory and it being behavior. As a behavior, it can be modified, but you need to understand it properly. But the behavior is motivated by a sensory craving to move. So you need to accommodate both things and have a proper plan on dealing with it. I will take another question. Have I made sense? Okay, please. Somebody spoke about focus. Yes, grandma. How old is your child? Is your
Going to be 3.
Ah, very good. Now, no, you can sit. Now, the prerequisite skills. I talked about prerequisite skills for speech and language. Eye contact, attention. There are 2 kinds of attention. Sharing attention and attending to task. Now, for a child to share attention or to look, the child has to be interested. Now, this is the challenge, which means that you need to observe over and over and over again what will engage that child. And interestingly, such things do not present themselves, they present themselves organically. So it might be running water, and you just see the child's eyes go, I want to play with water. It might be playing with sand. It might be going round and round in circles. But there is something that you can use to engage the child. But it will take a lot of patience and observation. And when you find such things, you expand on them. They become like drugs. You give it to the child in doses to sustain the quality of interaction that you're having with the child. So I move around a lot of things. When I move my things into a workroom, people are wondering, why is he carrying it? Because I don't know what we work. With the work that we do, there's no copy and paste. Every child is unique. Every circumstance is unique. But critical things we must build strongly are shared attention and attention to task. Something as simple as the child sitting and just staring at you is an opportunity for you to sustain that attention. It's taught, is rewarded, is reinforced. So when the situations present themselves, now speaking from the context of understanding behavior, is you reward the occurrence of that behavior. You highlight, you encourage the occurrence of that behavior. Nobody likes being cussed out. Nobody likes being given trouble. So, but everybody likes being celebrated. Even the child that you assume that is not really aware of the environment. And that's why it has to be animated, particularly for a 3-year-old. There has to be a lot of action. There has to be a lot of movement. Interestingly, I worked with a child years ago where the first time I saw him with the person supporting him in school, I pitied the guy because he was running around. The child who put him is what we refer to as a runner. So he will set you up for you to chase him. And the man was just running around the school. Now interestingly, before I met that situation, I had worked with another child who I would always love to I would always want to shut the door because he will run. But then I had a colleague, a foreigner who was around at the time, and the first time we met the child, and the child took off, I wanted to run after him. She held my hand and said, leave him. After 12 sessions, that same child that will set me up for a chase will come into the workroom, shut the door, sit down and attend to the task. So I realized that, okay, this behavior can be unlearned. So when I met that particular child who was making the other man run, I realized what I needed to do. I needed to have a lot of things that he's interested in, and I observed what he was interested in. He loved the outdoors. He loved the movement. And he will always want to set you up outdoors to run. So one day he attempted to set me up. And as he was running, I was backing up. And he stopped. And by the time he stopped, I packed the things and I started running on the other direction. He started pursuing me. I'll never forget that experience. So, have value. And I mean, behavior, ABA practitioners will call it pairing yourself with the reinforcement. So a lot of times I find it easier over time to work with the children because they've paired me with enjoyment. They paired me with a lot of things that they are used to having fun with. But yes, they are having fun, but I am focusing on the skills I want to build. So it will take a lot of observation for you to take it easy. Then I'm going to go Niger Delta. We are on reach, Waka they reach, so take it easy. Take it easy. A lot of times we are in a hurry. Take it easy. Observe. Observe. Note those things and do them over and over again and take your, the child will get there. But you need to lay the foundation, particularly now that a child is 3. This is the best time for you to do a lot of observation and take your time. Another question. Age appropriate for play? There's no age for play. I want to play. I love to play. There's no age appropriate. There's no age. Okay, there's age appropriate play, but there's all age brackets play. But and so there's age appropriate play. I will not put a 4-year-old on a trampoline with 6-year-olds or 9-year-olds because the jumping frequency is different. The younger ones may get hot. So there's an appropriateness for play. But play is for every age bracket.
Sir, I'm here, sir.
The lip reading and sign language. So remind me, this. Okay, so for me, I will first of all say, I look for the least areas of conflict with the children I work with. The child is lip reading. The child is comfortable lip reading. I will stick with the lip reading. It will affect, okay, you see? It will affect the child's ability to.
I would say it's good to do the two. The two. It's not wrong. For instance, we have someone here with hearing impaired. Here, he can lip read, but it's better with sign language. When you are far off, if you are far away from person that is talking, you can't lip read. But when you are signing, the person can stay from the back and understand you. And we have something we call deaf culture. When the child is with other deaf, that child will not be able to cope and understand what they are doing. He will not be able to communicate well with them. Now, everywhere in Nigeria, we use same sign language. So we say, sign language unites us. Now, when others are signing, deaf are signing, communicating, and that child is there, how will that child understand? That is the child's first language. Either you are Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, we sign. And that is how they identify themselves. it is good to lip read when the child is with other people who can't sign. It's like a bed. Some Yoruba used to say something, kojo adon, kojo eku. Someone like something that have a wing as a bed and is a rat. It doesn't belong to the class of rats and it doesn't belong to the class of bed. So it is better to learn this language than learn lip read so that you can fit in every situation or anywhere you find yourself. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mercy Mark. This my baby. She's 7 years, almost 8 years now. She's not walking. She's not sitting. I don't even know if she knows me. And
sorry, you don't even know?
If she knows me, because
okay,
you know, when others are talking about maybe, saying many things about their children, I used to say my own is different because one, she's not sitting. I always carry her. Even to feed her is a problem. I don't even know if she's seeing, because if I do like this, she's not even, just like what this mommy is saying. You understand? She's not even bringing her attention, So I used to feel as if at times maybe it's the mother that will know everything, as in, how will I even put it? Because the way you are saying now is for those that maybe they have the ability to understand, but like these ones that they don't even understand anything. So how do you do about it? She's 7 now, almost 8. She's not sitting. I'm even praying that at least she should sit so that I'll have my relief. That's what I'm even praying for. I'm not even talking of if she will talk or, you understand? So like this situation now, how do we that our own children's situation is a kind of very difficult than others like that? Because if I go to hospital, I will see others, they can sit, some they can do everything. Maybe it's only speech, but those that their own is almost everything. I don't even know if she's hearing or not. You understand? So what can we do?
Sorry? Okay. The first things first that I always try to do with any child that I meet is to be sure what the issues are. I am not a doctor. So it's best to have baseline assessments. Baseline assessments will give us an indication of what the child is able to do. So for sight, there should be a baseline assessment. For mobility, moving around, sitting, standing, there should be a baseline assessment to tell us exactly where the child is. The way the work is, the way I interpret what I do is I see it as I need to know where the child is, and I need to know where the child needs to go to next. I need to have an understanding too of where we are going to ultimately. It's not a 100 meters dash. Life is not a 100 meters dash for anybody. It's a journey. And we all have developmental gaps. So it's from, at times it's from mild, moderate to severe. And there's no one answer for everybody. So baseline, has there been an assessment to say she can see? With the issue of vision, the doctors have said she can see.
Equipment that they will use in as the full equipment. So they told me to go to Lagos University Hospital to go, and I've not been able to go yet, but they have given me the referral. Okay. For the hearing, when I went for the test, the amount they told me, 100,000, I just come back. I did not go back again. Seriously.
Okay, so that's where we need to start from, to have a conversation regarding where we need to go to next. Because we to make the journey a bit easier for us, we don't work with assumptions. We need to have those who are trained to do the assessment do it. Then we know exactly where we are and where we need to go to next. So I will advise you have those assessments done. Then you can begin to have other conversations around it.
I have something to say. Mama, I have Muminos Lamindi, and I have 9 years old living with cerebral palsy as well. He cannot sit, he cannot walk. So just like you, I started. So my child had meningitis and hydrocephalus, so that's led to it. So I can feel you, and really, that's why I'm saying this. So please, first thing first, make sure your child is in a neurologist. From there, they will educate you about your child. See, there is nothing your child cannot do. Demilade cannot sit. He cannot stand. If I talk to I started with touch. Yes, that child, he started seeing after 6 months post-surgery. He cannot see. I started with touch. Dr. Musa in Luz, he was my guardian then. So please start getting close to your child doctor. Start getting close to your child therapy. There is nothing you cannot do with her. Demilade cannot still sit yet. He's going to 10 by May. But when you see him, he is more aware of the environment now. Demilade is aware, like he's no familiar faces. When you talk to him, he looks where you are. My baby cannot do something like that 4-5 years ago. When I started with touching, when I speak now, he looks where I am. When someone that is familiar with talks, he looks where the person is. So that thing starts from you know the situation of your child. It started from you know where to help your child. That's what I'm doing, and that is what I'm going. I started studying psychology because of my child. That is it. Mama, please, you are not alone. You are not alone. You can do this. I am telling you now that you see that child not be sitting down, not be able to sit down, not be able to walk. It is not the end of the life. It is not the end. Please. Like, it hurts me when I see you cry. Please, stop it. You just need to know where to help her. You are not alone. You are not alone. Join a lot of special need group. We have super parents. We have Benola. We have a lot of them. Join. You will know that you are not alone. Listen to people. You will know that you are not alone.
It's my sensory need.
Hello. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm here. I would like to, my name is Joseph Moore and I'm an occupational therapist. I would like to quickly just corroborate what she has just said. For sure, we can be, it's not yet conclusive if it is cerebral palsy. But if it is, the primary thing would have been what he mentioned, have your child have an assessment done. Then there is ability in inability. All right, for the fact that your child is yet to attain those skills does not mean that your child will never achieve them. So I want to reassure her that you have, hope, and your child will sit. I've worked with numerous children with cerebral palsy, and I can tell you that that's a possibility that is actually achievable, attainable, and sustainable. So you have a whole child, and don't see your child less. Okay? So, Madam, primarily just try to make arrangements and see the appropriate doctors that will have the diagnosis given to you. Then you can source for people that will be readily available to help your child. I can support you if you get my contact, all right? Thank you.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Just have a question. My question goes like this. Please, what play materials can replace screen time? screen time for children. What play materials can you use to replace screen time
Okay.
for a child that is always on screen?
Okay. I think I've said it before. It's not one size fits all. You will need to do a lot of observation. You need to understand the child. Now, it still depends on the child. For you to replace a behavior, you need to understand the individual. You need to understand the rewards and the reinforcement that will encourage what you want to do. Now, for screen time, it's visual. So, I'm very careful not to give you a prescription because I'm not seeing the child. So, find out what the child loves. Find out what the child loves. And when you say screen time, is it the TV or a tablet? Good. So, with a tablet, you will start by cutting down the quantity of time the child spends on that tablet. And immediately replace that quantity of time with something else that the child is interested in. So if the child likes to run around or play outdoors, which is not sedentary and very good too, and the child will quickly go to a tab most of the time, you mix both of them. Then you gradually, and which is the challenge for all of us, particularly in life of Lagos, where everybody wants to be fast. It's not fast. Let me make it's not fast. Even with typical children, it is not fast. Unlearning is a journey. And the currency of relationship is the time that you spend in that relationship. So you spend time to observe, then wean the child off it gradually. It's possible. A child who is used to spending like an hour, you can start by finding something else that will take the child off for like 15 minutes. Then when the child is interested in that stuff, you know it has a bit of power, you gradually increase it to like 20 minutes. You progress gradually. But for you to just yank it off, yanking it off can be done, but are you ready to pay the price for it? Too, because there are certain situations. I know of a situation where a child was attached to her duvet, and it was an ABA practitioner that told us about this. The child was attached to her duvet, was always holding it strongly, would always want to go everywhere with it. And he asked the parents, are we ready to do all, will you allow us to do all that needs to be done to stop this attachment? And they said yes. Now this happened in Ireland, not in Nigeria, but the person in question is a Nigerian. And he said, when the parents agreed, he would come into the sessions with the child, and unknown to the child, he would cut the duvet, reduce the size of the duvet. He was cutting it off gradually. And one day the child dropped it. Why? The size of the duvet had reduced. It wasn't giving the sensory value as it used to give, and she dumped it. So it's possible to modify behavior, and unlearning is possible, but we must have the right kind of strategy and follow through over and over. The child didn't know what was happening, but he knew that the child had an attachment to that thing and he needed to wean the child off gradually. So it's not one size fits all. You need to observe. You need to know what works. Then deal with it gradually. Deal with it. Another example I will give is a child who has difficulty sitting on a swing. A child who has difficulty sitting on a swing is not the child that you want to force to be on a swing. No. Typically, I will reduce the length of that swing, and the swing will serve as a chair first of all. And and the child will have that sense of safety when they are moving back and forth. Then I will gradually increase the level of it. Once the child is comfortable with it, and I'll be careful with the movements too. On a swing, you have to watch the frequency of the movement and the child's comfort. So, I'll give another example. There are children who I will set up an obstacle course for, and they need to go through it 10 times. They are not interested in the movement. They walk into the room, understand they need to go through it 10 times, and they start fighting me after we move through it once. Such children, I first of all put 2 balls. By the time, so they come into the room, they see that it's just 1 or 2 balls. Okay, let's have it done. By the time they have done the first one, I put 2 more balls. I introduce it gradually, and I will do it over and over again. So it's to slow down and have a strategy of the right kind of reinforcements, the right kind of plan, but you do it. It can be done. Every behavior can be unlearned. But know that unlearning is far more difficult than learning. So when, for parents, I will plead, be careful what you allow the children learn. Because when you want to unlearn it, it will be far more difficult.
Please give him a warm round of applause. I don't know about you, but standing, taking all those questions and just sharing from your wealth of knowledge, we're truly grateful. I'd like to invite the convener to join in on stage for a quick picture and also to present our token of appreciation. Please put your hands together for Mrs. Mudin Wachuku as she makes her way to the stage. And we'd like the photographers to, tell us where to stand, where the light is best. They just said sometimes people prefer standing, sometimes people prefer sitting. But I see from a sensory point of view, while standing might be better because you feel more connected, you can see further, right? And you're more actively engaged. So say a big thank you. Please give him another warm round of applause. Thank you so much. I know we're going to go home incorporating play, reducing screen time, and ensuring that all play is age appropriate. Before we have our final Q&A, we'll have some of our sponsors here speak to us. We have a representative from one of our gold sponsors and then one of our associate sponsors. And then there's also going to be a QR code we'll flash later on so you can fill out a form that will be very helpful. But now I would like you to focus your attention as we'll hear from some of the people who have made today possible. It's a lot to put together an event like this, from the decor to the hall to the refreshments to the lovely speakers and panelists we've brought here, and none of us had to pay 1 kobo. So we're really appreciative that for the first edition, the inaugural edition, we had people who believed in the vision enough to put their money where their mouth is, to show support and to sponsor this really brilliant initiative. So we will start with the representative from Oak Legal. I just saw her a few minutes ago. Okay, so we have the representative from Oak Legal, which is one of our gold sponsors. So I'd like you to give a warm round of applause. Please, we want this conference to happen again next year. Maybe they'll go from gold to headline sponsor. But with that applause, they will think twice. So please, let's put our hands together for the representative from one of our gold sponsors, Oak Legal.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I just want to say a big thank you to our organizer, Ms. Machuku, even though she's not seated currently. Thank you very much for having us today, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I would touch on something personally before I go into our keynote. I've had cause to interact with the topics around special needs occasionally, but I know that I've learned practical steps today, and I'm very grateful to be here. I also know that one key point I picked and I want to emphasize on is the fact that each of us is an advocate in our different spaces. So even you heard our managing partner speak to the lacunas and the gaps in the law. So these are places where we as individuals can step in. You know, you find yourself in places of influence, and if you can influence thoughts and culture, or where law is being written, you need to speak up about stuff like this. Okay, before I go into that, my name is Gudo Yaro. I'm from Oak Legal. I'm thankful to our office for the opportunity to be here today. Oak is a boutique law firm, and we provide necessary legal services based on the needs of our clients. And so things such as trusts, wills, we're not afraid to speak about life after life. We're not afraid to speak about needs of our clients. So if you find that you need any such thing, we have a booth at the back, and then we're not afraid. You know, you can ask us questions, you can take numbers, you can take note of whatever you need to take note of for future purposes. I would say that caregivers have a role of learning. I saw that many people mentioned how personally they don't know what to do. Everybody becomes a psychologist. A particular mom spoke to that. Everybody becomes a psychologist, a therapist when they're carefully involved or where they are personally vested. So please, wherever you find yourself, become personally vested enough to even ask the legal questions. We have an inside joke in the office where we refer to how when budgetary cuts are about to happen inside a company, you find that it's always the legal budget that is cut short. And I don't know why that is, because at the end of the day, you put yourself inside problem. So ask necessary legal questions. Don't make makeshift documents. Don't use ChatGPT to make your special needs related documents and the like. Ask the right questions. Speak to people like Mary Stem. Speak to people like us, right? We have the right things to do. We tailor things to you. So learn to look for legal help where it's necessary. Thank you very much for having us today. And we're at the back if you have further questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that we'll go and engage them, and even when we leave this space, we will begin to discuss life after death, because it's inevitable. So as we've been open enough here to have these conversations, don't let it end here. Would like you to continue the conversations online, continue the conversations in your different communities. So we're really grateful for all our sponsors. We've heard from one of our gold sponsors, so we'd now like to hear from our associate sponsor. So the representative of Mary Stem Trustees Limited. Please let's put our hands together. CEO, these are people that put money to make this happen. As I keep saying it, associates can go to gold, gold can go to headline sponsor. No, please wait, they will give you that applause. Yes, cheer him on. Woo!
Thank you, madam. Good afternoon, everyone. We're delighted to be part of this initiative. I'm from Mary Stem Trustees Limited. It's been quite insightful conference, and I've learned a great deal. So at Mary Stem, we care for your loved one with special needs, and that's why we have designed a special needs trust that guarantees, the future of your loved ones, even when you are still around and when you are no longer around. So one of the things that we have learned in this conference is that everybody has a need. And we also learned that it's called not just special needs, but additional and extra needs. So at Mary Stem, we're here to support your loved one with special needs or additional needs. So you can reach out to us. Our stand is over there. We can tell you more about the trust arrangement. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. If you remember, trust
can be a living trust. It's not only when you die that you can have a trust. Remember the conversation we had on one of the panel discussions that 55-year-old that still has a trust. So please don't think it's something you can push till later. We still have a few of our panelists here and we'd love to engage them in case you have any more questions. Some questions came in on Zoom and I'll see if we can take some of them. But just before then, we'd like to flash a QR code from one of our exhibitors, Punuka Foundation. So can we just have that QR code from Punuka Foundation on the screen, and that way you can scan the QR code. It will take you to a survey and you'll fill out some things that will be very useful. So the code is already up and you can just please fill this survey. It's really important because a lot of times when you don't have data, you work on assumptions. Abroad, they have a lot of data. With data, you can actually raise funds. You can actually galvanize support. You can say, oh, we have X number of people, so give us this amount of money so we can do this work. So anytime people are trying to get data, I think it's very important that we contribute to that so we're able to be fully represented but also get all the resources, help and funds that we need for this work. So please scan the QR code and then fill the survey. So we have just about an hour, 9 minutes till the end, and I'm glad that we still have people here. I know some people have gone out to buy lunch or stretch, or some have gone to the restrooms and will still be coming back. There's still lunch outside, drinks outside. We still have shopping taking place at the exhibition. Our partners can't wait for you to visit their stands. You've heard from some of our sponsors. They're still here, willing to engage with you, and we encourage you to make the most of this opportunity. But we'll go to our Q&A. So if we can have some of our panelists who are still here, who can just join us on stage. I believe we have 3 of our panelists who can join us on stage for a short Q&A, or if they'll prefer to perhaps sit down. Do we have any questions? Let's start with that. So we don't, okay, we do have questions. Okay. So maybe we won't stress our panelists. We'll just take the microphone to them. We still have panelists from the different sessions. So if you do have a question, please put up your hand. A mic will get to you. Ask the question, and you have 3 of our panelists who are still here and will be willing to answer questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Esther Lawale. I'm a speech therapist. I should have asked this question during that, what do they call it, potty training and that, but my mind escaped it. So I've worked with one boy, then I still have another one that I'm presently working with. They have this issue. The parents have tried theirs, and I'm still working on it. They have a particular spot that they like to wee or pee or poo. The other one is in their veranda, and this present one is there is a spot in their parlor. So what do I do? I've tried everything, and if I take him to the bedroom or even the parents, he doesn't pee. But now, of recent, at least I'll say, guy, if you know pee, wallah, will not go come out for here today. So at least on 3 occasions now he has pee. But he still likes to gum in that corner. So when he gums there, I'll just push his chair there. He will scream and shout. I won't answer him. So what will I do? And what should the parents do? Thank you.
So this is a question on potty training. Okay, can we take the next question? Okay.
All right. I'm Tenny Dade Aderibigbe. So I have 3 questions. The first
Good
one,
afternoon, everyone.
handling transition to puberty.
Okay.
So
puberty.
Yes. So I observed for the males that when they get to that, when they are close to puberty, they tend to start playing with their sex organ, especially when they are with a particular female that they feel free, that they love, or they feel that this person accepts me, understands me. So as they play with it, they start giggling and they start laughing. So now, why am I asking this question? Should it occur in a public setting? So as for the child not to be misunderstood in an African setting, how do you manage that? Then how do you help the child to rightly express the affection in his heart for the female party? Yes. 2, the role of crying for a child with speech or language delay. So yes, a child who doesn't talk, who's non-verbal, yes. So I've met with some people, and I think I'm tending to belong to that school of thought. There's opinion that crying really helps a lot in the child speech production and all. But I want to ask, how valid is that? What exactly is the role of crying to help a child improving and speaking? Then the last one, dealing with difficulty in chewing and swallowing. So I've had the privilege to actually work with some children, particularly one who has a challenge with chewing food. So this particular child doesn't chew. So his food has to be pureed, blended. If it is fruits, it has to be a smoothie. It has to be smoothie. And even he just started taking the smoothie, he wasn't open to us. Initially a picky feeder. So now when you try to introduce a new meal to him, of course you have to go into the WWE boxing ring to get him to eat. Yeah. So we tried introducing this supplement, this candy supplement. Probably if he has it in his mouth, it tempts him to want to chew, but it doesn't. He just licks his way through. Anything you give to him to take in, he licks them. And if he can't, if his tongue is unable to crush it, then he spits it out. And this particular one, let's say, is around 8, 9 till now, still unable to chew. So I want to ask, what caused it, and how can we manage it? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for those questions. I'm writing them down, and I'll just repeat them so that our panelists here will be able to answer them. Will bring the phone. So I'll just take the questions.
All right.
Hello.
Good afternoon. My name is Enobong. I'm coming from the city of Port Harcourt all the way here.
Woo!
Because of a peculiar issue I have, I'm a shadow teacher to an autistic child. His case is very severe. We've done ABA, we've done several interventions, but we are not getting results. So the mom is saying, in Port Harcourt, we don't do therapy. That is in Lagos. That's why I decided to come here. The boy runs a lot, just like the other speaker said. Sometimes I let him run so that he could come back, but he will never come back. He will go to the sand, bury himself, get to a point he will pull his clothes and run naked, fiddle with his private and all that. So like now, I came for this program. I landed yesterday. He's supposed to be in school because I'm not there. They said no, they can't manage him because they won't have their staff running after him. I am doing all of that, and it's exhausting. And then when you leave him to run and you're not following him, he will go pack sand and begin to chew, which is not healthy. So I don't know what are the interventions that I can put in place, the right intervention to help him, because I'm bothered.
Does the school have any intervention? Do they have an SEN policy?
It's an inclusive school. So all they have tried has failed. The issue of they had similar cases like that, which they will allow the child to go out, but because those ones don't play with sand, they don't hurt themselves. Like the other time he went, hit himself on the window, self-injury, all those stuff. His disruptive behavior is on the high side. He would just want to stand up, he will push the table, and it can hit another child. Sometimes he bites. When you're trying to stop him, he bites. He scratches. Sometimes he will just stand up and grab a child. So I'm on him like a hawk. So if I'm not there, he's not allowed in school. So how can I handle this?
Okay. Just one more question for context. Do they have centers, and have the parents
explored going to a center before
He has-
transitioning to mainstream?
He has been in several centers in Port Harcourt. I think that's why the mom has concluded that Port Harcourt we don't do therapy.
There are no centers.
We have. I said he
Okay.
has been in several centers.
Okay. But it hasn't been effective.
It hasn't been effective.
Okay. I've noted that question. I believe there's one more question.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Lamidi Muminat. So, my tone is rather a request, not a question. So, I live in Okokomaiko area of Lagos, and I have a 9 years old living with cerebral palsy. He cannot sit, no walk, so I have to back him around. Since this place is about needs and therapy empowerment, and I know we have some therapists here. So I'm making a request, please, can we have a therapy center in Nokoko? Getting my child therapy, I will need to go to Luth from Okoko Michael, moving a 25 kg boys around with them. It is not easy. And it is almost 10 and I'm afraid. And I know some children above 10 in my areas that they couldn't access therapy because of this anymore. So as my child is getting closer to 10, I am also scared. Is my child going to join this population? Is he not going to have access to therapists in it? Because I tried private therapists, and per session I'm paying 15,000 naira. And I'm a student, I don't have much. How am I supposed to get, like, my child needs this at least 3 times in a week. So how am I supposed to have 45,000 naira in a week? So can therapists, even if it's a mobile clinic, that we know that this is a day that these people are coming, we'll wait for them. Can therapists come together to help us in that area, please?
Thank you very much. Well, one more question, okay.
Sorry, I forgot to add it to the first question I asked about transitioning to puberty for the female aspect. So I've had cause to actually interact with a female, like as at the time she was around 13, 14. So it was observed that whenever she's about to menstruate, she starts having seizures. So now the mother is always worried, unhappy, because there was a time that there was a particular seizure that she had when she was menstruating that caused her to have partial paralysis in the right hand side. So we had to do the physical aspect. So this part of her body is protruded. So you have to, when she's now walking, you can see the disalignment there. So now looking at, and it all started from when she transitioned to puberty. So that of the male playing with the sex organ, trying to understand how he's feeling internally, and the female, the results in our body system resulting in seizures, how to manage it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 3 of our panelists who are still here, so I'll do a recap of the questions and
Please.
we'll have the microphone go around.
Please, ma. Okay, I would like to add my voice to the lady that said something from Okoko. I came all the way from Satellite Town. I don't think there is any time they run program on special needs that I don't come. I'm a mom of 2 boys on the spectrum. I know one of our panelists in the front, she might not remember, I've been on her program. I coincidentally met one of my sisters here too, and she was like, you are here? I said yes. I don't know, over there, most of the things I've gotten, most of the things that have really helped my child, my children, are things I've gotten from these centers. I've had time to, I'll be the teachers, this. Most times I'm reading, I'm always on one program or the other. I would also want to plead, is there a way some of our panelists, we can also help a lot of us on that end to educate us. I also, I meet a lot of moms, I'm like, I'm going here, I'm doing this. They're like, you have time, but it's not about time. Like, it's about what do I do? I actually came here to know what next for my son will be 15, the first one will be 15, the second one 12. What next can I do for them? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for advocating not just for yourself, for your children, but also for your community. I believe that, where there are problems, there are challenges, that also presents opportunities for growth, for innovation. If they can't come physically, perhaps a virtual option can be explored in terms of the advocacy work, the teaching, and then like one of the delegates asked about having perhaps a mobile clinic where you come on a particular day. I know if there are enough numbers, the therapists will charge something, maybe not as much, but they are willing, because that's an extra opportunity to reach more people. And some of these organizations looking to fund things might also be interested. So for the benefit of our panelists who are still here, we have about 4 panelists still here. I'll just run through the questions. So we had a question on potty training using the toilet. This question had to do with a child who goes to a particular spot to use the toilet, or to poop or to pee, instead of using the toilet. And this person just wants to know what they can be doing to encourage that child to use the toilet, not just to go and pee and poop in that particular spot. So that's the first question. The next question has to do with puberty transition for both the male and the female. Male in terms of touching their genitals and understanding their emotions, and for the female, how the menstruation cycle has led to seizures and what can be done to manage. Then we had a question around the role of crying in speech development. Is it good? Should it be encouraged? Should it be stopped? And then someone also asked a question to do with difficulty with chewing and swallowing. What can they do to encourage the child to chew, to swallow, and not just lick? Then we had the question on disruptive behaviors, looking at someone who came all the way from Port Harcourt and has said, when the child goes to school, they are eating sand, they are removing their clothes, and it just seems like, what can they do, as in this case, as a shadow teacher in the school, to ensure that the child is learning but is also not disruptive? And the last thing was a request for the therapists to come together and intervene in Okokomaiko satellite. And I think this is also an opportunity for us to really put our mouth where our money and our energy where our mouth is, when it comes to asking government to do the needful, because we can't only have one Luth, right? Working on policies, working on a disability act to ensure that we can hold our local government chairman, you can hold them, responsible. Yes, it's not just about primary health care centers that are underfunded, but what are we doing for SEN? What are we doing for families who have children living with special needs? So if any of our panelists forget any of the questions, I have them written out, but I'll bring the microphone and as many questions as we can take. We just have under an hour to go, and then we'll have our closing remarks, and then we can all go to the exhibition area to shop.
Okay. Sorry, permit me to sit down here. Okay. So I want to take the question about the lady that said something about they don't have enough centers in Okokomaiko. I will start by telling you a quick story about what started me off last year, going into the grassroots to start to do a lot of advocacy within the grassroots. We started with Etiosa local government, and we went to the local government and told them, just as Isabella said, that what are you doing about SEN within your local government? And then they said to me, we don't know whether we have people with this sort of disability within our space. And I said, I'm going to conduct a survey, and we're going to come back with the results of the survey. And afterwards, we can then now come back to the table and see what we can do for these people. And the response has been marvelous. It's been because we went in, we were able to identify that there are these people within your society, within your local government, that are not, they feel that they are left out. They are not getting the services that they should be getting. They are ignored within the community. And when we came back with the statistics, working together with the local government for Etiosa local government, we were able to draw up a plan. We were able to give support. And we have been assured that every year, they put it in their program, that every year they will continue to give support in the area of free therapy or intervention for the people within them. Again, not that I'm leaving it to only the local government in Etiosa, but we've decided to write and charge all our other people, government people in the different local governments. Right now we're in communication with Amuwo Odofin, and we're doing just the same thing we've done with Etiosa. We're coming to Amuwo Odofin work, and this job is not just for us, it's for everybody. If you come out in your numbers and you're ready to put your foot down, your boot down to do this advocacy work, they hear the voices, they see that we really need them. You hold your government people accountable, because there is a provision for them. They know that they should attend to these needs. But if nobody is saying it, they can't go away without doing it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's up to you and I to hold our people responsible, to go out there and talk to, and it's all about grassroots community advocacy. Go out. I think someone said earlier on the panel that, you know, stop hiding your children, bring them out, let them see them in the community, let them understand that these people also deserve to be part of the people that they need to attend to. Does that answer your question? Right? The second question. Potty training. The first thing I will do with that potty training is that I will make sure that that corner that that child keeps going back to is not accessible to that child. So we block off, we cordon that place. If you've identified that every time I want to poo-poo, that's where I go to. So you first take out it can't get there. So what happens, it will have to look for an alternative. And so because you already have a time that you've already said, okay, at this time this child will want to, we redirect. Again, only you can't do it alone, because if you are not around and the mom that stays with the child, so this has to be done together with the parent at home. So you can't do it in isolation. Potty training cannot be done in isolation with only the therapist. It has to work from, you know, at home too. The parents have to understand the steps required for this potty training. The child has to understand. What's the child's level of understanding as to, okay, this is the toilet and this is what we do in the toilet. And the parents also let the child see you using the toilet. Again, it's about modeling that behavior. Oh, I want to poo, I go to the toilet and poo. You know, they see it, they understand it. They don't have that, they don't feel, you know, you don't shame them. Again, another thing I notice is that when they poo on themselves, you see the parents, they shame them. They, you know, all that, they don't feel ashamed about. It's a natural thing. It's a natural physiological thing to want to poo. So if they don't feel ashamed about it, they won't hide. And if they don't hide, they see that, okay, I can't, this place is blocked off. You take them, it's a step-by-step thing. It's not a one day that it will happen. But when you are consistent with the process, it will definitely happen. It's something that is doable. It would happen. So consistency is very important when you're teaching any skills, any skill whatsoever. First know that, does that child have the capacity to learn, to understand that skill? Check. Okay. Is the environment set up for that child to be able to contact that reinforcement? Check. Now the next step is, let us teach the child consistently. Stay on task. Sometimes you will see that it's overwhelming, but do not give up. You need to get to the very end. So that's what I would advise for that child. We talked about sensory. What was the question, Isabel? What was the question about the sensory child?
Disruptive in Port Harcourt, you know, eats sand, removes clothes,
yeah.
and the school, like, if she is not there as a shadow teacher, the child can't go to school.
The first thing I'll say about that is that I don't think that child is not in the right environment the child needs to be in the first place. Because if you are not there and the child can't go because the people in the school don't understand the child, then I don't think that child...
She's a shadow teacher in Port Harcourt, and the child is in a mainstream school, but is disruptive, sometimes injuring himself, hitting his head on the window, removing his clothes, eating sand, and he likes to run, and they don't have the energy to be chasing him. So if she's not there, he can't go to school. Like she's here in Lagos, and as a result, he can't go to school. So she just wants to know, what else can she be doing as a shadow teacher?
Yes, so initially when Adenola... Okay, yes, you want to take it. Yeah, initially when Adenola... I don't know, were you there when Adenola, Zuzi, and... I can't remember the last person. We're talking about... yes, and Toby were talking about school readiness. And if the child has the skill to be in a particular place or not. I don't think that child should be in that mainstream school, even though you think it's inclusive. If you are not there, nobody else can attend to the child. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't think that's the right environment for that child. One. Then the second thing is the child playing with sand and all of... The child is a sensory thing. It's sensory. The child is enjoying the feel of that sand and all of those things. And when it comes to something about sensory, if you cannot get something else that is a replacement for that thing that child is contacting, it's very difficult. Do you understand what I'm saying? Is enjoying that sensory feel of that sand. I won't say remove the child from that, from him, stop the child from contacting that reinforcement from the sand that he's playing with. However, I would say you can modulate how much the child plays with the sand, as opposed to, so that it can, when we finish this thing, we'll go to the sand. Again, you can use the sand play and whatever as a reinforcement for, the work you've done or whatever it is. But I don't think that's where you are at with that child. I think first thing first, you have to take that child away from that environment, because that environment the child is in right now is doing more damage for the child than good. Does that make sense?
Do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, Adenola is going to, I didn't see her there before, but she's sitting down there. That was her topic. She will take it.
All right, hello everyone. So quick one is, there's so much that can be advised, even though it's best to assess the child before making recommendations. Sorry, I wasn't here. I kind of heard your question. How old is this child? Okay. Let me tell you, as a shadow teacher, you want to get trained to help that child. She has talked about providing sensory diet and everything, or finding what the sand is doing and meeting that need. How would you do that if you are not trained to do that? Have a plan on getting trained. I would recommend ABA. You've done it. Okay. Because that's where you start from. So that, because now you solved this one problem. On the sand thing, him being supervised or you being supervised. I'll talk to you on the side, because I don't want to, but let me say this, because the reason I took the mic was, when we were on the panel, Susie was saying something about how, facilitator is a waste of guinea girl and all of that. And it's because of situations like this. Many times, when we're in mainstream schools, we kind of say, we want to focus on academics, because that's what the school is looking for. But that child is not going, the child's life does not revolve, nobody's life revolves around academics. That child is going to pass school age. What's next? How are we empowering the child for the future? How are we empowering the child to solve their cravings, sort of? How do we teach a child to meet his own need without learning socially relevant behaviors to meet their needs, and the only way we can build that child for the future is not just to provide shadow, is to learn effective evidence-based strategies. So I'm not just addressing you. The reason I took the mic was beyond you, because I could have come to talk to you on the side, but I took the mic because there might be people here or watching and they're like, oh, I'm a shadow teacher, I'm struggling with this. Get that training. Options of training will be the easiest, the most accessible licensing training, I must say, is ABA, because the others you have to go to school for it. Speech therapy, you will go to university. Occupational therapy, university or diploma. But ABA, at least you start with the technician level training and get a supervisor. And if you already have a BSc, you can get the supervisory level, so you can grow. And I just feel like, let's solve children's problem beyond, because that's the problem with whether they are rubbish in shadowing, or because they say, oh, then the next thing, the child has gone through school, shadowed for 15 years, and that child is still dependent. So, but I'll speak with you on the side so we can solve this.
So, yeah. I just also wanted to reiterate something that was said on the panel. There's a difference between teaching and therapy. It's very important, because sometimes you've put the child in school, and when the child in school, they are focusing on the academics. They are focusing on education. Well, in as much as I know that education should be well-rounded, you should look at the social, you should look at all those other parts. But sadly, in our schools, we're only focusing on the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s. And so a child that falls short in the area of social development, in the area of social interaction, that is where the therapy would come in place. So if you take away that therapy and just focus on the academics, you would have a child exhibiting behaviors that you are struggling with, because what you understand is to teach, not to provide intervention. So again, it's very important, if you want to provide intervention, go through that cadre of learning and certifying and becoming a professional in that field, so that you don't do more harm to that child than good. All right.
There's the question on puberty transitioning for both the male and the female. So for the female, when she menstruates, she has seizures, which has led to a paralysis and a disalignment on one side of her body. And for the male, he begins to touch his genitals, and it's how to manage this transition to puberty. There was also a question on the role of crying in speech development, and then what can be done for a child who's almost 10 years old but still has difficulty in chewing and swallowing.
Okay, so I'll quickly jump on the puberty question. I don't know how we somehow missed this, but when especially girls, and this is not just girls, I've actually seen it in boys as well, when we go through puberty, because of the surge of hormones, even children that did not have seizure disorders before can have something called puberty-induced seizures. And as caregivers, as parents, as therapists, we need to be aware of this. And I always say, when seizures are puberty-induced, then we know that it requires a change in lifestyle and diet. Because the truth is, you will find that once the period is over, the seizure is over. The child's not going to have another seizure until the next cycle shows up. So we know that this is puberty-induced, this is hormones-induced. So it's two things. We need to deal with diet, we need to deal with lifestyle, and usually doctors would recommend a hormone panel to see if there is an hormone that is out of whack that is causing these seizures to occur. I was also going to jump on the 10-year-old that is refusing to chew and swallow. It could be two things. It could be oral motor dysfunction, which is that the muscles of the mouth that are used to chew are weak. And that's something that needs to be addressed by a speech therapist. Or it could just be sensory. Speech, trust me, I know what I'm saying. How many pathologies do you have?
It will be addressed by a speech pathologist.
If you have it. So
we do.
Okay. And if they can access it, let's be realistic. We know now. All right. So the other thing is that it could also be sensory. Sometimes the texture of food is the reason we will not chew it. I say we because even me sometimes. Even me sometimes, some foods will just not be chewed because there's just a certain way that it feels in my mouth that no, we're not keeping this thing long in this place. Let's just send it back down and move on. So we need to understand if this is happening with every single food item, then let the child see a speech pathologist because this might be an oral motor dysfunction issue. But if it's specific foods, then it might just be a sensory issue, and that would be addressed by either eliminating those foods or changing the texture with which they come in.
Yes, just to add quickly, when you want to address such thing, work with your OT, occupational therapist. They can work to identify, okay, is it a sensory thing? And if it is a sensory thing, they would go through, okay, is it texture? How do we present the texture? Is it size? How do we present the size? Is it just, the sight? Is it a visual thing? Or the smell. So again, that's why you're working with an occupational therapist that understands sensory integration. I'm saying an occupational therapist that understands sensory integration because it's not all OT that can work on sensory integration. So if it is a sensory thing, it will be nice for you to work with an OT that understands sensory integration so that they would be able to help you, break down what is going on and how you can address all of these needs. Thank you. I wanted to add to the boy with the puberty issue. Can you take the question again for the boy, the puberty?
He touches his genitals. So they just want to know how can they manage that, especially when it's in public and he begins to
Sex
touch.
education.
Yes.
Yes. So I think I was at some function and I was talking about sex education, especially for our children with special needs, and some people were shying away from it. And I'm like, if you can do sex education for your neurotypical children, what makes you think we shouldn't be doing sex education for our special needs children? I think they need it more because if you are trying to teach them things in units, then that should be something that is in our foreborner, like in our head from the beginning. Once you see your child is growing, you're telling them X, Y, and Z. And then I think at that panel, the issue was, but the child does not talk. And I said, look, if I'm using pictures to describe certain things. You use it, this is your body, this is your this is your that, this is your, and use the right names. It's very important, especially when we're talking to our children with special needs. Don't say boo-boo, don't use the right names to call the right parts. This is, sorry, I don't know whether I can use the right name here, but you understand what I'm saying. This is this is that, and then tell them, show me this, show me that. Again, when I'm doing things with the boys and dad is available, I would say, Dad, I need you to walk your son through the parts and let him understand why this is and why that is, why I'm covering this, why this, and all of that. Again, the child comes out, opens and scratch and do all sorts. So the child needs to know where it's appropriate to do X and Y. I think another thing I said then was, I talked about masturbation and everybody was like, Tofiakwa. And I'm like, yeah, but it happens. If your child likes it, you can't stop him. All you need to do is teach him the right way to do those things. This is a public space, this is a private space. If you have those urges, we go to this place and you can do it when nobody is there. Again, you don't want them to hate their body. You don't know what they're internalizing. So don't do that to the child. The way you would do a sex education for a neurotypical is what you would do with a child on the spectrum. If he wants to, touch his genitals, he's enjoying it. is contacting some enjoyment, some reinforcement is going on, and that's why he's doing what he's doing. So what you need to do is teach him socially appropriate behavior. It's not appropriate to do this in here, but you can go to your room and lock the door. If the child is not someone that is talking, you can, use a picture. You can do, what's it called now? Social stories. Social stories are very good. This is what you do in this. This is what you're not doing this. Things like that can help the child understand what we're saying. Appropriate behavior. But please do not stop that child from touching. I beg you. Just teach the child the right way to touch and where he can touch. And teach him that we don't touch the upper, the rules about, you can't just see a girl that you just like and just go and grab. That's not acceptable. Just teach the rules that guide all of these things, and that's it. Okay?
I also think that part of the reason that we're constantly having this conversation is this assumption that because people have special needs, they're supposed to be asexual. Yes, there's an assumption. Because I've seen it. Yes, because the first person to even talk to me about masturbation was a father who did not have it, who did not know what to do with his child. He was not the mother of the child, he was the father of his child, his own son. And then he reached out to me to say, my son is masturbating, what should I do? I was gobsmacked. I said, you're a man, sir. Why should I be the one telling you how to teach your son about sex? And you did not think that he would. So there's an assumption that we think that because people have special needs, they're supposed to be asexual. So we do not make plans to teach them about sexual reproductive health rights the same way we would make plans to teach them. Even though, yes, as Africans, even our typical children gone, our sexual reproductive health education needs help. So we need to basically think about it as sexual reproductive health education is required for all children. We're not going to wait until they discover it on their own, because all children will do so. Because it is not only children with special needs that touch themselves. All children do. The only reason we are now highlighting that a child with special needs is touching himself is because he was never taught. He doesn't know where and when to touch. A child that does not have special needs would have copied by watching where are other people doing this thing, and they know that, okay, I shouldn't do this in public. But your child with special needs, you didn't teach him. So he's doing something that comes naturally, and then he's doing it at the wrong time. So we should incorporate sexual and reproductive health education the same way we would incorporate it into the curriculum for our children that do not have special needs.
And introduce it very early. Don't wait till the child is 10, 12 and is doing it, and then that's where you're introducing it. As early as possible. Again, I hear that puberty starts to set in from 8 now. These days it starts to set in from 8. So as long as your child is eating, you are putting it in talk to the OT, they would know how to break it down for you and put it in ways that your child would understand.
There was a question on swallowing and chewing, almost 10 years old. And
someone answered it.
Is it? Okay. And I think the last one has to do with that request with having, what's it called? Not Sokoko, satellite town. So those ones, they don't have therapists coming there, centers there. And what she said is a lot of the women there want to come for conferences like this, but they don't have the time to. So if there's a way that more advocacy work can be done, more teaching can be done so that they have that information.
I'm ready to work with whoever is ready to work with me. Let's put the boot on the road and hit it and go into those spaces and talk about it. Advocacy begins with you and I. You have a question? Oh.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Antonia. I'm a parent. I came all the way from Abuja for this. Yes, I have a daughter who is autistic. Okay.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Yes, I'm a mom of an autistic daughter. She's trying and she's striving well. I'm happy to be here. But this question is not about me. It's for a friend who came to me because she's very worried about her sister. I recalled the question because of what you talked about. Is the daughter has reached the age of puberty. They live in the UK, and the daughter cannot handle her menstrual cycle well and all. So she's considering deeply of using puberty blockers. So her sister came to me worried. And she's like, I need to stop her. And I'm like, I don't know how. So I'm here and I'm happy to ask this question, hoping I can take something back to her about this issue. She says that she takes the sanitary, rubs it everywhere. You know, she makes a mess once she's on her period. So they are strongly considering using puberty blockers so that she can't cope. The woman can cope. So I don't know. What can you say? What can you advise?
So I'll let Toby start off, and then I'll just round off.
You know, this thing about puberty blockers is a very, very personal decision. There will be some people for whom that is the answer. Especially in the cerebral palsy community, where, you know, a lot of our children are like fully dependent, the whole 9 yards. The truth is that most parents cannot handle. You're already handling the usual pee and poo on a daily basis. Then you now want to add period to it. It just becomes overwhelming. So puberty blockers are actually the answer. And some people even choose puberty blockers because they don't want to run the risk of anything happening if their child gets abused. You know, they don't want their child falling pregnant and all of that. So it's a very personal question. You really cannot stop someone from putting their child on puberty blockers. If their child is not competent to handle, and because periods are a lot. Let's be honest. Even for typical people, periods are a lot. Let's not talk of where you have special needs. I can tell you for free, periods are a lot. So if the girl herself is not, you know, competent to handle it, maybe from a sensory point of view, or even from just the physical aspect of, you know, having to change a sanitary towel and all of that, puberty blockers might be the answer for a while till you walk her up to the point where she's able to handle it. Or it might be that you need to change what period products they're using. Instead of using sanitary, because sanitary pads can be very sensory disconcerting. So have they thought about period panties? Have they thought about adult diapers? Okay, those might be a little bit easier for her to manage because they don't have that, you know, that way pads can be now. So they don't have that sensory issue and input with pads. It might just be that. If you change the period product and she still can't handle it, then, you know, period blockers might actually be the answer.
Okay, well, our time is fast spent, so we'll just take any more contributions and then we'll move to the closing remarks.
Okay. So, just to quickly add to that, because I said I was going to add, for you to identify if it's a sensory thing or it's a sanitary towel thing, again, she needs to work closely with her OT. That's the role of the occupational therapy. Again, OT does so many things that we ignore. We just think is a physical thing. That is the role of the OT, because they will be able to look through all the available. Again, medication, I always say, should be your last resort, not your first resource. So explore all other options, like the period panties, for example. It's fantastic. It's fantastic because you don't see anything, you don't feel anything, and they are actually disposable ones that the child will use on a daily regular, so she doesn't feel anything. It's just like putting on your underwear and she takes it off and then trashes it. So there are so many options, and that's why I said work with the OT, because the OT will be able to identify all these various options, and then they would observe. Observation is very important because they are looking to see to identify what exactly it is that the need is feeding. That's flattering, and what is it feeding? Is it a sensory? Is it feeding visuals? So when they identify, they'll be able to find replacement behavior for that particular child. Because, you know, when you take something and you don't put something back, that's the danger. So as you're taking something away, you have to put in another thing, which is called the replacement behavior. So any behavior that you're taking away, find a replacement. Whatever that behavior is feeding, find another behavior that can replace that behavior you are taking away, but will still give that sensory input, that feel that that child is getting, because that's the only way the child will be able to move from this thing that I love to another thing that you are giving me, but it's still giving me the same satisfaction. So work closely with the OT and the child's doctor. Very important.
Thank you very much. Please let's give all our panelists a warm round of applause. Thank you so much. Time is fast spent. We're going to have our closing remarks, and then you have a few more minutes to visit the exhibition stand before we close at 5 p.m. Of course, there's still food outside for you to go and buy, drinks outside, and we're just so grateful for everyone who has stayed back this long virtually, as well as those of us here in the room. We're sorry if we couldn't answer your questions, but like I said, this is more than an event. It's a movement, it's a community. Continue to engage with us across our different social media platforms. Before I call on the convener to give her closing remarks, I would love us to specially warmly appreciate, I would like to call her Obiri Meta, which is a 3-woman person, because she has really done the work of 3 people today. Please put your hands together for the talking finger teacher. She has made this conference accessible to people who ordinarily won't be able to come this far to lip read, to hear everything that's being said. That applause was a bit weak. I want us to cheer her. I want us to sign. Yes, let's all do the sign. Let's applaud her. Let's tell her we love her. Thank you so much, the talking finger teacher. We really appreciate it. At very short notice, she just rose to the call, and you can tell that this is a passion, something that she's good at, and we're really grateful. If you have enjoyed being here today, I just want us to say thank you. Sente 2025 Conference and Trade Fair. Can we do that? Like, I want our voices to be very, very loud, okay? Just say thank you. We can still go, once this event is over, to say thank you personally to the convener, to thank all the people who have supported. But for now, let's just say that at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Sente 2025. Woo! And in that same vein, keep your applause going as we invite the convener of Sente 2025 Conference and Trade Fair, the founder of the Memory Resources, Mrs. Buni Washington.
Wow! What can I say? What can I say? What can I say? This is actually very surreal to me. When I got this idea, I said to myself, how do we fight feelings of despair? How do we get parents to come out and know that it's not business as usual? How do we get people to respond? And as soon as we opened the portal and we saw responses flooding in, we were just so inspired. We were just so very inspired. And I want to say thank you personally to each and every one of you who has spent this time with us today, online and in person. We are just so grateful. I want to say thank you to our sponsors who responded to our call immediately. This is the first edition. They had no pedigree, they had no reputation to work with. They were like, They just listened to what I had to say and they said, you know what, we are on board. So I have to say thank you to our sponsors, Mamori, which is by myself, which we have Sunlink Energies, we have Oak Legal, Mary STEM, and all our amazing partners. I would love to mention them all, but you know, I can't. But I just truly appreciate each and every one of you. Sponsors that came on board immediately and just they talk the talk and they walk the walk. I want to thank my speakers. Oh my God, can somebody give my speakers a round of applause? Every single one of them that I reached out to, every single one of them that I reached out to said, when do you need me? Nobody said I'm busy, nobody said no, nobody said how much. They said, when do you need me? Even when one of them had to be away, she said, I am going to be there no matter what. And so I just want to say thank you so much to each and every one of them, because I wanted people of value. I wanted people that would give knowledge. I mean, just look at, they've been here since the beginning. Toby, Shalape, Tolu, they've been here since the beginning, and they're still here answering questions. I am just so grateful to each and every one of them. I'm grateful to my team that held me down, my generals, they held me down. This was conceived within a few months, and we were not even sure how it was going to pan out. But they pushed and pushed and pushed. They kept me going. We worked so hard. They worked tirelessly. I don't want to know when we all closed yesterday. But they came through. And all this, I'm just the face of it, but all this is certainly not the work of one person. I want to say thank you to my vendors. My vendors, that Savvy Point over there, and so many other people that believed in a first-time trade fair and packed their things in Nigeria today. To pack your things and go somewhere, not knowing whether they're ready. You know, you could just stay at home. But they believed in us. They believed in us, and they're here. I want to say thank you to each and every one of them. Thank you to my volunteers. It's duty to volunteer for something that's never happened before. You're like, that place is amazing. Let's go there. There was nothing there was no story to fall upon, but they volunteered, and they have been excellent. I thank each and every one of them for doing that. The people, you all that came. I'll come back to you. My MC and moderator, can we give her a round of applause? Isabella. Oh my goodness, what a powerhouse. She has been amazing from beginning to the end. For those, I'm hearing I flew in from Port Harcourt, I flew in from Abuja. I love you all, but I have to give special props to you for believing in us. I am so, so very grateful for that. And to everyone, Ibadan, yeah, Mrs. Kojo, yeah, for everyone that registered, heard about us, registered, made plans, put things aside to be here, I can only say thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. This was a labor of love, and it's so good to see that people appreciate what we're doing. And it's still ongoing, because what has happened here, what I've seen today, is that there is a hunger. People, you know, they're not content anymore to stay in the shadows. We want answers. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. No child has to be born with additional needs. Nobody asked for it. And even though it has happened, they will continue to thrive. And we'll continue to fight for them. We'll be advocates. And there will be no child left behind. No child left behind. There's no excuse. No child left behind. finally, and I'm saving the best for last, I just want to thank my support network, my home. He's not here, but I will say it. My husband, my family have given me just so much support. My friends and family, I cannot thank you enough for doing this. All the glory, all the honor, all praise goes to God. Absolutely. Everything I've said, everyone I've thanked, it's all possible by God. God gave me this vision, and I want to believe I've delivered. Thank you. Thank you. We have so many questions online. We have so many people still saying stuff. And all I want to say is that this is just the beginning. The best is yet to come. Bring on Sente 2026.
Thank you so much. All that is left to add is see you at Sente 2026. You're not alone. It's truly a community that we have here. So as you're going back to Okoko, to Satellite, to Abuja, going back to Port Harcourt, take everything that you've learned, share with your families, your communities, your schools, in your workplaces, and let us be advocates. Even if we don't have that title, let's mainstream this conversation. I'm so grateful to every single person here physically and everyone who has joined us virtually. You made the job so easy. When I say dance, you get up and dance. When I say thank you, when I say ask questions, you've been the most amazing today, and I'm so grateful. My name is Isabella Adediji. I'm also known as the Intelligent MC, and it's been my absolute pleasure being your host here at Sente 2025 Conference and Trade Fair. Woo! So we have a few minutes to visit the exhibition stands, but the event is now officially over. Thank you so much. Go shop, buy food outside, buy resources, visit all our exhibitors, our sponsors, our partners. Shout out to the media. Keep sharing your photos, your videos on your different social media platforms. Remember, you are not alone.
So exciting to be.